Yes, tomorrow's Breast Cancer Awareness Day. So you just wear your pink shorts one day too early.
Oh.
You got it just the whole month today. It's like, Mom, why don't I have anything pink to wear? It's like, it's never come up before. But now that you mention it, it's a solid color, man.
It is.
Looks so good.
I got in so much trouble once for putting, I had a second grader who wore an appropriate shirt. And I had to make him change. It was the third time I told him. So I had to make him change. I didn't choose the shirt. I just handed him one. And his mom came to me that night and gave me she tried to rip me a new one for putting pink on her boy.
Oh,
Yeah, pink on her boy, that's just not allowed.
Are you gonna text Laurel and
I am doing John.
Trish,
I
are
don't
all
have
the
Is your cousin coming?
presentations in person? Yeah, he was just checking emails from her.
Yes, they're all in person.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Email it.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you have a number for this?
I know that I emailed her after our last meeting and said, hey, we're meeting.
You did, okay. So is this gonna be recorded?
Yeah.
recording right now?
We don't, yeah.
Okay, well, why don't we,
Start, because we have a pretty tight schedule
Yeah.
with the three of them, and I don't want to push it back with some people. It's my thoughts.
Seconded.
Okay.
I guess I was gonna check.
They're all from your machine.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share the presentation.
Okay.
Why? Why isn't that meeting?
Look, I have a stash of every pencil I steal from every meeting.
Stolen his, I think I probably have one, so.
Okay, Vicky, all you to start.
Oh,
You're running this one.
calling this meeting to order at 6:04, October 29th, 2024. Call the meeting to order. We do not have a quorum. We are here for information specifically.
Unless somebody else comes.
And yeah, unless we get another person to show up and make work, which would have to be a community. But anyhow, this meeting is called to order.
Rolling roll call.
Roll call.
You good over here, sir? Okay, Ryan Sanders is
You're
here.
just our anchor.
If you want to go.
Just out there too.
Okay. Good. The invocation. This is our school. May peace dwell here. May the rooms be full of contentment. May love abide here. Love of one another. Love of our school. And love of life itself. Let us remember that as many hands build a house, so many hearts build a school. Agenda modifications are. Oh. We have a consent agenda.
Yeah, there's a whole field trip.
Susan
I-
should be here right now talking about these.
Yeah,
Well, they were on the consent agenda, so not really for us.
That's true.
So,
so are we gonna modify the agenda to put the consent agenda last?
well, does anybody have any questions on this?
Yeah, what?
We're taking action on the field trips?
You have to
Well,
approve
we
them.
just have to approve the consent agenda. So we don't,
Okay.
there's not, I mean, typically we don't discuss the consent.
Yeah,
But
but was it sent? I don't understand what.
I don't understand that stuff.
Yeah, like,
Because
I have no context
I don't know that we had the slips like we normally do. Okay, so I make a motion to move the consent agenda after governance.
I second.
Thank you. And we have no further discussion, so
Well, we can't take action.
Yeah, we can't vote on anything.
Never mind.
Okay.
So I just. Agenda modification.
Agenda modifications, we'll deal with the agenda after we deal with.
When one wheel falls off, all the wheels.
So,
Okay,
moving on to item 3, governance, facilities committee update, and architects.
yeah, so the update is facilities met last week. We had the 3 firms that are presenting to us today present to us. We decided as a committee and voted that we have them all coming to the board. So we would have 4 choices. We would have 450 that's already presented to us, plus these 3. So they will each present. And then after that, we can have discussion after they all present. If we are able to make a decision tonight. I have had some discussions with Chico Unified a little bit. They do not have a preference one way or another. They really want us to pick one that is best suited for us. So they feel like any of the candidates are qualified and don't have any concerns about it. Is kind of what they say. So a lot of what they presented to us in facilities, they are going to present again tonight, so I'm not going to go through all of that again. Facilities was excited and happy, and they thought that we had some pretty good presentations and were excited about the prospects.
All 3 of them are well done.
I would ask everybody to jot down or give points as you go through on the positive pieces that you see, so we can bring those up later easily.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Good idea.
And we now have a quorum.
Yay.
Yay, bonus here. All right.
And the only other thing I would add is we are on a tight schedule to get all 3 of them done with 30 to 40 minutes. So maybe just keep our questions to stuff that is really gonna help us make a decision. All of the other stuff that maybe isn't decision warranted, we can set out later. That's mine.
What color are you painting?
Yeah, we don't need to know that right now. That's Thanks, Vicki.
We have one more person. Come on in.
So first is DLR group.
Put you guys on.
So we cleared out space over here for you guys. Thank you so much. Have a seat. And that's Tessa, right?
Yes,
Tessa's gonna run the she was gonna log into Zoom and share her screen to run that. So did you get into Zoom already?
I'm in it, yes.
Perfect.
One question, do you guys have sound set up?
Or sounds terrible.
We do have sound, but I don't know if it's gonna play. It's probably best if you just use it on your laptop. It's not gonna be our sound is not gonna be better.
That's
than
fine,
your
it's not necessary, I don't think, all the
Okay.
words it says it leaves out as well, so I'll just.
Okay. So while she's getting that, you guys want to, I did no introduction really because there's a few of us here that already heard you guys last week and a few that didn't, so I figured I'd let you guys introduce yourselves. So,
Sure.
you wanna start?
Yeah, okay, we also have a 401 interview.
Oh, perfect.
My name is Jared Costa, Senior Associate Project Manager. Been with DLR 10 years and been experting K-12 the whole time.
I'm Kate Vega. I'm education funding specialist, so I help our clients find funding.
I'm Chris McKitt-Brown, principal of TLR Group and K-12 design leader.
I'm Tessa Nelson, I'm our K-12 business development leader and community liaison.
And then is Jessie.
Jesse
You
is.
guys can hear me?
We
We can't hear you, Jesse.
You can hear you, Jesse.
All right.
Oh, you should only hear him because he's on ours.
We should maybe set it down. Oops.
You can't hear me, Tessa?
There we go.
Hi, Josie.
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Oh, there we go.
Try again, Jesse.
Hello?
Thank you.
Now we can.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys allowing me to be virtual. I'm about 3 hours ahead time zone wise on my body, so definitely would have loved to have been there with my team. My name is Jesse Miller. I'm the K-12 education leader for DLR Group in California. And so we're excited to present to you guys tonight. So with that, we kind of went through introductions. I think the big takeaway that we didn't cover though is that the 5 people in front of you and the people that are on my team behind them have all dedicated their lives to educational architecture. I've done it for over 20 years. Chris is over 28 years, mostly in the Sacramento region area. Jeremy, I'm not going to go through everyone's age as I get to the ladies, but but definitely a team that is very capable and very knowledgeable, and we're going to present that to you today.
Thank you.
So DLR Group, education's kind of what we do as a firm. It's our #1 market sector worldwide. We've done a lot of schools, every shape and facet, elementary, middle, high school, charter, independent schools. We've worked in the Chico area for many years with Chico Unified School District. You see Emma Wilson Elementary School on the left photo. But then we have some exciting projects that we're really excited to show you what's possible for Blue Oak Charter, right? You can see the image on the right. We also had done a school that had a creek on the site, and what an amazing outdoor learning adventure that became for those students. So we really have we're a research-based educational firm, meaning what we do is based in proven facts and statistics that show that our architecture really impacts the teaching and learning of the students. We know you guys are a Waldorf school, and our ethos that we're going to share here in a second really aligns with what you guys are trying to accomplish as Blue Oak Charter. We have a quick little video that really shows what our K-12 team is really about, what they're living day in, day out. I don't know if that sound's working or not, but
We can hear it a little bit on our.
It's just music.
okay. Well, really what that was saying is we really believe that well-being, community, joy, the brain has 4 sides to it and is impacted differently by each one of those key elements as you're learning through an educational setting. And so we're going to share with you quite a bit of information. I know it's a lot, it's very quick. And I know that this is not a decision to be taken lightly by you guys. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime amazing opportunity that you guys have in front of you tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the people that are actually in the room. So you can have a little bit more face-to-face interaction.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about some project examples, but first I want to talk a little bit about our process, because really our process starts with you, listening to you, understanding what your needs and wants are for Blue Oak. And we want to make sure that we're putting together some goals, some guiding principles of what our roadmap is going to be for this design, and something that we can look back to in every decision that we make. And so we'll also engage focus and user groups on your end. We have interactive workshops. In those workshops, we do have educators on staff educators that can talk directly to your teachers and your staff and students and really understand their needs and wants through our process as well. And then other outreach. Not only do we do virtual meetings like this, but we also do websites and surveys. We go to back to school night, we go to open houses. We like to engage with the community, the parents, the students at the school. And also, there's other community outreaches that we have done also, whether it's, going to a coffee house to meet with parents or just, getting in the community to meet with individuals. So we want to make sure that we're including everybody's voice in this process and the design that we do. So looking at this slide and us creating learning spaces, we design student-centered learning environments, and what that means is that we want to make sure that we're creating environments to make sure that students succeed in their learning. And we want to make sure that it is engaging and creative environments. It's bright, colorful, it's whimsy, and also just playful for the students. Nature-based learning, having that indoor-outdoor connectivity in learning. So you're not just learning inside the classroom, but you are outside in nature as well. And so when you talk about indoor-outdoor, bringing the nature inside is important. So having that transparency to the outside, whether that opens up to the outside so students can move in and out, so you have that extension of the classroom environment to the outside, but also flexible classrooms. We want to make sure we're creating spaces to where students and teachers have choices to where and how they learn within the spaces. And then art as a teaching tool, creating areas where students are being creative, not only indoors, but also outdoors in the elements that you see here, and making sure that we have all-inclusive play in the outside. And then, looking at the video and the information that you sent us and the type of the Waldorf school that you want to be, and really looking at craftsman style and craftsmanship in how a building is put together, and having those warm wood elements in the architecture that we're looking at, and then creating areas for students to be able to be comfortable, having kind of that homey feel to where it does feel like home for them throughout the school. This is Neil Dow Elementary School here in Chico. Like we said, we've done a lot of work for Chico Unified over the past 16 years. And one of the things that we always like to do is make sure that we're identifying the culture and the identity of the school. And here at Neil Dow, their mascot is the dragons. So we took the dragon and actually, I would go and put it
You can go for it.
You can actually see the dragon overlaid here with the body and the tail as a wayfinding tool throughout the school. And actually, the library is situated right here, and the library became the heart of the dragon within the school. And then these are the new buildings, and these were modernization of existing and then new NPR. And so really having the flow of the students going through there, and in the library, having that really whimsy feel of the tree environment, and then collaborative space down the middle of the classrooms. And then Jeremy's going to talk.
Okay, so Richland Elementary School, the reason that we have this one up here, it's a K-5. The reason that we want to show this one is because the site was very compact, like your site that you guys have. So we had to go 2 stories. Most K-5 schools are going to be single story, but our site had so many restraints that we had to elevate it. Some of the key strengths of this campus is that there's multiple indoor-outdoor spaces. So this image right here is actually the library. There's this little reading nook where classes come in here, and that opens up to a makerspace, and then that opens up actually to an outdoor courtyard. So if you get all these kids in here, there's a bunch of collaboration and inside, outside. And then we have a collaboration space on the 1st and 2nd floor. And what's really special about this, it's in the core of the building, and that has direct access to all the classrooms and direct access to the center courtyard facing out and all the play fields this way. And the real heart of this project is a central courtyard here. And that really has all the fields and the courtyards down here. There's a lot of nature stuff that we kind of incorporated, gardens. But this really is the concept of the school. We have the MTR here, and we have the administration building. It really creates a central hub for our flag ceremonies.
So the next one is Westlake Charter School. This is a K-8 school in Natomas in the Sacramento area. And they're all about world travelers, explorers, and actually we laid out the buildings and according to the world map as well, and then identified each of the buildings with different areas within the world. And they're all about art and foreign languages as well, and the performing arts. So we have a lot of indoor, outdoor activity when it comes to flex space, art space, so that the classrooms actually are circulate around a flex space like this. It has roll-up doors to the outside, so they have outdoor patios for each of the grade levels. And there's also, you see that indoor activity even at the stage at the gymnasium, to where they can perform either to inside the gym or to directly to the outside to an amphitheater in the courtyard. This also was designed in a way to where the elementary school and the middle school were somewhat divided, to where there's community elements in between the two, so that you have the admin building you see here, and then directly behind that is the library, gymnasium, and cafeteria, and then that is all connected by a mall down the middle that connects all the grade levels throughout. This is also, you might say, the rest of the projects that we just showed you was actually all stick built. The one thing about this school is that we designed it in a way on modules so that we could modularize the construction. All the walls were built off site and brought onto site and constructed so that we could save money during construction.
How did that save money?
By building components off site and bringing them in. Instead of building everything on site,
Okay.
walls were built in their
Carried
contractor's factory, brought in, and then they were craned into place.
So it was your contract who did it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And there are other contractors also that do this on a regular basis, normally for their work. They will build the walls off site to save money. This is a high school, Beaumont High School, and this is actually a two-story modular building. And the reason why we're showing you the two-story modular is that we were able to customize certain components of the modular building to where we could still have open common spaces on the inside. We had glass walls that were able to open up, so you had that interconnectivity between the classroom and the common space, so that students could do breakout out here in small groups. And then also the lab spaces still being flexible, having power coming down from the ceiling depending on the lab types. But this is a model that we have done on several sites. So when working with modulars, we still have some flexibility that we can work with to customize the program.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to schedule. So what I did is I took your example program that you submitted to us, I took your site, and I did some experiments, compared them to some similar projects. It's a little hard to see, but we'll get you a copy. But essentially, this is going to be our traditional project delivery method. That's designed by an architect, we bid it out, and a contractor, general contractor, performs the work. And they sell all that out to individual trades. Okay. Each one of these processes, there's a design phase required for that. So there's a schematic design, there's about 4 design phases with us. And then we have to submit it for plan review. And then from there it goes out to bid. And then we start construction and kids in seats. So kind of dialing this in a little bit. So all of our design phases, we're gonna front load if we're doing the traditional. And what that does, if we start January 1st, and this first example is going through DSA, City and DSA have pros and cons. So for this example, we're doing DSA. If we start January 1st of this year, after December, we could have kids in seats in fall 2027. Okay. However, if we go to the city, everything else is going to be the same, but in our experience, you're going to probably double the time with the city. Okay, and so what that does is that's going to push your schedule out an additional 6 months.
And is that city, like our building, which you go to, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So with DSA, you're working with one agency. When you're working with the city, you have all these people that are working with it. So it can get a little convoluted, but as just an overall, we kind of wanted to have you guys have this understanding of what a potential schedule could look like. So you can kind of see the differences. Almost identical, but we do have we can have delays in the city. Okay. So the next schedule that we can do for project delivery is an incremental schedule. And what that really does is it fast tracks the project. Okay. So it's going to be the same setup with all the design phases, but instead of doing all the design phases and going for plan review, and then construction, what we end up doing is we break that project up into different packages. So that first package, we're going to get it out there super early. And that's going to be your demolition, your site grading, your site utilities. That's going to be done while we're still designing the project. So you get that out front ahead. We start doing the building and we start designing it. When they're done with that first increment and the site's ready, well, great. Now the next trades come on, they do the building, and we actually gain almost, January, sorry, I can't see that. Yeah, so that almost bumps it up almost 6 months even sooner than that. So there's different project deliveries, and the most important thing is for you guys to kind of understand that and for us to work together to see what's going to work best for you guys. There's pros and cons to each, but it's really important that it works for what you guys need. Okay?
For the incremental schedule, does it cost more?
No.
It's just more you make.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So construction-wise, you're just going to be breaking it up. So essentially, you're still going to have all those same costs and design fees. It's all going to be the same. So, yes.
Does breaking it up like that run the risk of things getting all scheduled and causing the whole thing late more than traditional?
I would say they're equal. Yeah, any delay that ever happens on here with the general contractor is going to affect everything else, right? You have to have this done so the next thing can get done. But I would say they're equal to the same. Yeah.
I think probably people are wrestling with why is traditional? This is just as good.
You're right. Right.
What's the answer?
I missed it. I heard the first part.
Why does traditional even exist if this is the exact same button?
Because this is actually breaking it up. Some people like to bid this out separately. Some people like to wait and do this as an all-inclusive general contractor. But also people do this as monetization and they phase this project. So it's over a couple of years. Okay. So there's different ways that you can approach it, and it's all about the project program itself. So you have everything you need, great, you can do this. If you don't and you're still kind of working things out, well, then you kind of need to go back. Yeah. Okay, so from schedule, we're going to go into fees.
My turn. I get one slide. So my role with DLR Group is really, I'm integrated with our team, so I understand what's going on from the project perspective, but I also get the honor of integrating with our client and really understanding what you guys are trying to find funding-wise. Right now, we have a great opportunity. Hopefully, you guys all have gotten your ballots and you've seen Proposition 2 on there. Prop 2 has $600 million for charter schools for the school facility program. That's an opportunity to partner with your school districts to go after funding that way. That brings DSA as a must, and there are other things that brings, but it is a great way of potentially getting some funding for your project. Then there's my little person down here, no stone unturned. That's because we try to explore other opportunities as well. There's federal funding out there that there's potential for a lot with energy right now. There's tax credits for districts and charters to utilize for things like photovoltaics or solar panels. So There's lots of different channels out there. Well, not lots, but there are some channels out there to help fund your project. So that is my role. And hopefully I get an opportunity to work with you on that.
Okay, so I think one of the main goals that we were trying to accomplish here is modular versus stick built. During the first couple images that we were going through with Chris, we talked about some of the modular, some of the, what could be after the fact versus stick built. So there's been some significant escalation that we've seen over the last couple of years with labor and material. I'm sure you're all aware. So right now, for stick built new construction, we're looking at about 950 a square foot. It's important to know that this is just direct costs for construction of buildings and does not include any site work. Now, when we switch to modular, same scope, we're dropping down to 650. However, it's important to note that if we do go with the modular route, there is going to be additional costs because you need low voltage, you need to have technology for your classrooms, you need to have your fire alarm. That is not mandated by the modular company. So there's going to be additional fees, additional costs. Okay. Again, that's not included in there. So I think we were touching on this earlier. Pros and cons for cost. Well, 650 versus 950. However, there's some things that can go back and forth, right? So it might be a cost savings up front. However, if there's a domino effect with fabrication or anything in the implant with the inspections, that can cause some delays. They're all contracted with the general contractor, but the modular company is a third party, and they have procurement, they have all this backlog. So ideally, that comes first. Another pro is it includes all your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. A really important piece of this is it can be PC approved, which is pre-check. So if we're going through DSA, that can significantly save on time and money. Okay. And I guess the biggest pro is that I think we all know it's a drop-in-place building, right? So you come in here, your site, you do all your grading, and you come in and you drop the building. Okay. A few of the other cons that we're going to be talking about is just you're limited with the design and the finishes. Okay. As we're kind of going to that slideshow, a recurring theme is a lot of these things are just boxes. And when you go away from that, now you're changing the design. You can't really change the structure. So you're talking about putting different walls up, moving bathrooms. And once you start doing that, you're almost getting back up to here. So obviously there's a lot of more pros and cons, and it's something that we want to sit down with you and kind of actually go item by item and see how it works best for you guys. So this is not something that we're going to come say this is what we should do, but it's it's a collaboration. Okay. So the most important things, these projects we do from small to large, as you can see. So there's different range of fees, low to high, but the two that we focus on is going to be a fixed fee. But with the fixed fee, it's very important that we have a very clear program and scope of services. Okay. The reason for that is if we get here and program's changing, well, then we're going to be increasing the scope creep, and a really popular one that is most common with districts that we work with is going to be your percentage based on construction. Okay, and the benefit to that is like right here, we're starting a project. We think we have a program, but is that exactly what you need? Have you talked to everybody? So the way we do this is we do that a percentage of construction. So we're contracted, we work with you guys, we develop that program, we get everything dialed in, and then if the scope increases, these increase, vice versa. Okay. If we end up doing modular or any type of plan reuses, you guys have a very tight site, so we'll see how that goes. But there's also fee negotiations that we can do here. But most importantly, we want to work with you. So we want to know what your vision is, what's your roadmap, and we want to be a part of that. Okay? So I think last time we touched on, hey, what is something before we actually start the project, right? So that pre-schematic planning or that programming phase. It's very common for our districts to do this. It's almost like before we start the project, does it even work? We have all the stuff that we need, but is it going to work? Is the money going to pan out? All that stuff. So what I wanted to do is I put an example up here. This is going to be based off construction cost. It's kind of hard to see, but you'll see it. But this is based off of the old BOCC, and it just has different ranges and how that kind of calculates the fee.
It's like a sliding scale.
It is a
not
sliding scale,
cost.
but it's also related to cost of construction, and again, this is all flexible, depending on your budget and stuff like that. So typically, if we do that pre-schematic planning phase, it's probably gonna be around 2 to 3% of your overall soft cost of the project, okay? So for example, this is,
The bottom of it.
yeah, so I think this is about 800,000, and I think it ended up being like 45,000 for the pre-schematic. But what that really does is it saves you all that work up front, so you really understand what you're getting yourself into before we start going on that road, okay? So what we typically include in these pre-schematic is we're gonna review your program. We're gonna make sure that it's everything you need. We're gonna advise if there's things that you're missing that you might need. Project goals is very important to us. We wanna accomplish your goals, okay? This is your school, it's not ours, so we wanna make sure that everybody has a voice and that we're accomplishing everything. Again, we talked about this, your site's pretty tight, so what we really need to focus on is how do those fields, how do all those nature items that you guys had in that video, where does all that stuff go? You had your play areas, where the buildings go in your drop-offs or your parking, where does all that go? Well, that's how we start the process with this pre-schematic, okay? So by the end of this, if we accomplish this phase for you, by the end of this, you'll know your program, you'll know your goals, what theoretically that site could look like. We'll have all the pieces in the right spot. And then we'll have a rough estimate based on the square footage and type of zoning that we're doing on the site. Okay? And I think most importantly is this gives you all the roadmap to move forward with what do we want to do. Okay? This will give you the big picture of like, hey, this could be our school.
And the pre-schematic is kind of when we're saying this building's here, this building's like
Correct.
making sure it's working.
Correct. Yep. Exactly.
When we did the Neil Dow project here, at Chico Unified, that was one of the things we did in pre-planning. We also did the study whether we wanted to go stick built or modular, so we did the study
In the
of both.
pre-schematic, like in that, okay.
Yeah, so we knew which way we were gonna go when we started designing the project.
Yeah.
And what was gonna fit for the project.
Yep, exactly. And I think the last thing I was just going to say is, at the end of this, it's important for us to have a clear program and a budget for everybody to move forward. Okay. What's that?
Okay.
Any questions?
I think I wrote a couple down.
Oh, good.
As we.
All right, good.
As we went.
Off to a good start.
Yeah. You said you build all over the world, you guys all over the world? build
Yes,
schools?
we are international.
Just schools only, or do you build other?
So we do everything.
Everything.
Yeah, so the people that are sitting here, we've done K-12, so we're the experts in this. We have experts in civic injustice, federal, all those other sectors, but we strictly focus on K-12 schools. And what's great about that is, yes, we're international, but our firm, this is the firm. So we have this mothership DLR, that's our brand, but the people that you're working with is right here. Yeah, you're not talking to people that are miles and miles away. This is the group you're getting. It's not corporate. It's the relationships and the collaboration and communication.
You guys build schools all over the world?
Yes. I know in the United States, absolutely.
No, we do have some built schools in China. Office in China. In other regions.
We've done kind of similar to you guys, like Waldorf inspired schools.
Yes.
I don't believe we have any pure Waldorf academies in our portfolio.
Do you see any, like, I know you've only looked at our project from a high level, any big red flags or concerns that you guys have at this point that we should be thinking of or considering?
I think it's a great site.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential. I think you have that little creek in that river. It is tight. I think it is going to be challenging to get all that program that you had. I think when I was doing a takeoff, you're about 25 to 30,000 square feet as an estimate.
Yeah.
And putting that on that 2.5 acre site, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we currently have been actually under construction about a 2.5 acre site in San Francisco for school, it's a 3-story.
Okay.
In order to get all the play, the required play area around it's a challenge.
Yeah.
That's
People
what
are
it is.
used to that.
Well, I think another benefit to your site is you have an intersection there. So there's multiple opportunities to have like a flagship building, and then you have your multiple drop-offs. So
So we've heard that there's a cost difference between a single story and a second story, but just since you mentioned it, is there a cost difference between a 2 and 3 story compared, or is it just one is one way and then the other is the same?
So I think the cost that we were referring to was just stick built, could be any story, and the other one was just modular, could be any story. But modular only goes up to 2 story. Yeah, so that 950, that's just all new stick built, and then that 650 was all modular, it could be single, double, 2 story.
So if I could kind of chime in on the questions here. There is a cost difference from when you go to 2-story to 3-story. The types of construction changes and then the fireproofing requirements. So there is going to be a little bit of an upcharge, but when you have to, that's what a good partner like we would come alongside you with and help you make these decisions, because going 3-story may allow you more site program per se, right? Which is very critical to your needs and to your students. So it may be we need to present multiple choices to you as we go through the process and allow you guys to make those decisions of, what is absolutely critical, what's a want, what's a need, what's a would like type of thing.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you all. Any other questions, comments?
I have a probably dumb question, but I want to ask it. I'm assuming since you're used to doing schools, if we went 2 or 3 stories, you would account for accessibility.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and depending on what grades you put on, for like kindergarten on the 2nd floor, there's going to be other accommodations we need to get those little guys off, so they'll have separate exits and so forth.
So I think one of the main reviews that we do when we see this in your DSA is access. So any path to travel, getting anywhere on campus would be.
Thank you guys so much.
That'd be great.
Really appreciate you making the trip up. And, seeing your faces and getting to meet you. And then we'll gonna talk afterwards, and I don't know if we're gonna come to this meeting tonight, but I'll reach out to you, Jesse, and just kind of let you know after this meeting, kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your dinner.
Yeah.
Thank you for the recommendation. Sarah.
That was my thought too.
They've almost asked me to go to Sierra.
I've probably been there several times.
Yeah, it's the last place we went.
Where do you
It's a bar.
Oh, okay.
And
Maybe not the
I
best.
like soul, I feel like Mexican food, so.
Yeah.
Good and inexpensive.
No?
It's really, really good. It's a dumpling place.
It's
Where it
where
turned out.
we had to get issues.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Or Sizzler, if you didn't ask.
I remember there, were there 2 sisters?
Yeah. It is a really versatile restaurant. I've got a really.
I've seen it and I've been like,
Good.
okay. You see the same restaurant turn over.
I know, it's like a
Yeah, I don't know, but it's always been good every time I've gone.
Yeah, there was something right before this that I don't think ever actually put aside, like the feature.
Okay.
It's never opened the door. We'll try our best.
So this is Kevin and Clint with RGA. He's gonna try to get on Wi-Fi so he can share his screen for audience.
Was it the same link that we had
No, let me email. Is it the same Zoom as when we did facilities?
No.
No, okay, so let me email it.
Sounds good.
Or I'll just give you the code. You can just, we'll do it that way. Yeah, then. You're up here, right?
Where did you guys have to come from?
I always.
Right in town.
Oh,
there,
there,
yeah,
yeah.
I was like,
Oh, that's right.
I
Yep.
can't eat this, even though it's up there. No,
There's 10 of them that should try for.
Thank you.
Looking at that zero with the slash through, and I think that's a zero, not
It's a zero.
You just hard copies of what we're gonna go over.
Okay.
Okay, I just emailed you the Zoom, if it connects.
It's not working. Should I try the Wi-Fi from Kuwait? Is that bad? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, it's in capital.
Positive time is a charm, but let's switch it up and see what we get.
Otherwise, I do have PowerPoint you can share, and I can, if you share me the PowerPoint, I can. Whatever.
Okay, cool.
Oh, good, okay.
Can you send it to my regular email address?
I just replied to an email, so, yeah.
That should work this way.
Yeah, that's a cover.
If you need a clicker, I have you ready to go.
Like
Not-
last week, whatever.
We'll try it one.
There you are.
I won't join with audio, so we'll just go through this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fine. So I guess we can introduce us.
That would be great.
So Donna and myself, Vicki and Ryan are part of the Charter Council board. And we're a mixture of parents and community members. And then Ms. Jennifer is one of our fourth grade teacher, and Buck is our safety admin, know all the
Facilities
building
boss.
expert, czar.
Facility maintenance.
Whatever.
Oh, and food.
Sorry.
He's got 4 titles.
He has a lot, so. Susan's our executive director, and then Maggie's our assistant.
Excellent. And who might be joining us online?
Oh, well, we have some parents, and then me and Ryan are on there, and teachers, yeah.
Great. Just start by introducing myself. Clint Peterson. I'm a partner here at RGA. Been with the firm for about 20 years. Local Chico, born and raised. BB High School. And I am primarily serve on the engineering side of the company. That's my area of expertise, but I also do project management and serve on that sort of work. Kevin here is going to be your tour guide for most of the event, but I'll serve for any questions or support that might be needed. That's modest, but Clint's education is both architecturally and went to Cal Poly Pomona, so he's kind of splitting the line. And Lewis to dispose. Sorry, I went to Pomona for mine. Well, we have a presentation that we'd like to share with you. About 40% of this is what the facilities folks have already seen. The other 60% is something new that we'd like to share with you too. I'm a huge fan in these sorts of situations of talking rather than talking at you. So I'll try to keep our presentation on the briefer side. I understand we have maybe 30, 40 minutes to fill here, so we'll probably talk for about that time, and then I will have questions. So I hope at the end we can have a discussion and just talk about stuff and get to know each other. Is that legible for everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Well, without further ado, we're RGA. Like Clint said, we've been around for about 24 years. We were founded in 2001. We're a team of about 18 right And we have 2 licensed architects on staff, 3 licensed engineers. And the most important thing that I'd like to point out about RGA is that we are a local practice. Our office is down in the Commons on Park Avenue in Skyway, so we're close. That means a lot of things for us, and we hope it means the same thing for you too. But the first of which is that our RGA has a reputation of being responsive in our community. Not only as being local community members, but being able to provide great service because we have so many connections here. Chico Senior. For this project, we would consider having a dedicated project team for the Blue Oak project from beginning to end. I'll explain what that means a little bit later on. And what we value most is that we build relationships. RGA has been around for 2 generations. We just transferred ownership with our founders, Matt and Don, and then we have 5 owners in the company, which I'll show you a bit here. But those relationships that we've built over the last 24, 25 years serve as a continuous growing, a legacy of success. What that means also for you, us being local, is that we have a different fee structure than most big city firms. That means that there's a high value per dollar spent if you do business with RGA. Basically, we have lower overhead costs. We have a lower cost of living here in Chico. And that translates all the way through to our fee structure, which we'll talk about a little bit too. On the experience side, we have a cohesive project team. That means that we have engineers and architects who have worked together for decades. We also have a large consultant pool that we pull from here. Means that we've more than likely worked with every single one of them for decades and have good experiences and relationships. We'll talk more about the project team and consultants later too. BIM is a word that not a lot of folks might know, but it's building information modeling. You may have heard already tonight, but here in the local area, there's not a lot of firms that use that. We are the local BIM leaders in that technology in Chico and the surrounding region. What that means for you is that we design in 3D. So from beginning to the end, we're coordinating things in 3-dimensional space. That's a lot better than just coordinating 2D plans, like AutoCAD, for example. So there's a lot of good benefits from that, all the way from the design and the graphics and renderings and visualization studies, which we can talk about later, all the way through to the construction administration phase. The idea is we've looked at everything in 3-dimensional, and we understand if there are conflicts in it. And sharing that information with all of the team members is pretty integral to allow them to walk through 3D space. Yeah. We sometimes when I do actually charter school presentations, I like to bring a virtual reality headset and put somebody in charter school design. You'd be surprised, sometimes it doesn't end well. And then some of you may know, but we do have a relationship with some other folks over the decades. We designed the original part of this. I helped design the expansion here. I don't think we've worked together for a number of years, though, but just to tell the story, because it's funny, I met some of you more recently at your fundraiser. The band that played for you was the band that played at our wedding, so we're really pleased. I'll tell the joke again, but if you guys have it next year, you have to. More about RGA. We are qualified in the charter school realm. We've done quite a few charter schools over the years. We've also designed school campuses from the ground up. So the project type and the project size that you're talking about for your project is right in our wheelhouse and something that we're very familiar with. Outside of that, we've also done a lot of projects that are similar size and complexity to what you're talking about. Even if they're not charter schools, the office buildings, the retail establishments, the restaurants. And we'll talk more about those example projects later so you can get a feel for what RGA is. And last but not least, we are an integrated project team. So we are a multidisciplinary firm, and we have integrated architectural and structural design. So that's what RGA does. There's a lot of benefits to that, right? We're working next door to the people who are designing the engineering for them. And vice versa, they're working right next to the architects who get to slap their hands. It allows the designers to quickly get feedback on ways we can push the material to the limits. Do more creative things in there. Clint is about 8 steps away from my desk. So across town in a different company. So, this is RGA. This is our ownership team. Matt and Don were our founding principals back in 2001. They actually came from Nichols Millbrook Rosetto, another larger firm here in Chico. We started RGA back in 2001 with the idea that we are a local community-based firm and we value people for profit. And that sounds like a cliche, but that's actually in our core values and our vision statement for our company. We'd like to think that our employees stick around for quite a long time. We are employee-owned, and like I said, we've been over here for about 24 years. So I thought it might be helpful to talk about what a project team could look like for Blue Oak. Not just RGA and the consultants that we could bring on for you, but talk a little bit about the broader context of who are the players in the project from here to the finish of school for you. Our recommendation would be that we have a single point of contact with RGA. Simplifies things. I would be your project architect and your project representative. Yeah. But of course, I'm backed up by our entire RGA design team. In-house, we do perform architecture and structure, like I mentioned. We also have interior design staff on hand. We have a really great department that's doing awesome work with visualizations and renderings. That's still images, photorealistic images, video fly-throughs, share them later too. We have great relationships with the city of Chico in their entitlements process. So everything from the planning department all the way through the building department. We hold semi-regular meetings about every 2 months with all the department heads, planning, engineering, public works, building, fire. And then on the other off months, we meet with the city manager. So that's a face-to-face meeting with the city manager, just employees, and we talk about the things that are good, talk about the things that are bad, and try to fix the best we can. Last but not least, we have document management staff on hand. So from beginning, like let's say, we can share visualizations and graphics through the digital realm with you. But all the way through construction administration. We don't just hand the plans to a contractor and say, good luck, bye. The idea is that we're there to help ensure that the school that we designed is the school that we built. There's more pieces to that puzzle, but we embrace a cloud-based technology, a platform that a lot of contractors use. There's one called Procore, there's one called Build. The idea is that we're well-versed in that system and we can speak to contractors language, so it's easier. And then last but not least, the consultants that we could consider bringing to the team for you. These are some of the generic ones that we would consider required for the project: electrical, mechanical, civil design, landscape architect, fire suppression, and then this building will be large enough that the energy code is going to require us to do commissioning for it. So we would consider bringing commissioning. That's not always required. We can perform the commissioning services in-house, which is a good cost savings to you. Just depends on the size of the school that we design for you. So there's some limitations to what we can't do. And then last but not least, the one that I saved for this for last, cost estimator. It's one of the most important pieces of this puzzle. We could bring somebody in as part of our team to help with the cost estimator. And I say could because there's a couple of different ways we can skin this cat. I have some slides later that might help explain that. And then to go back up to the top, we think that Blue Oak would be best served by having some of your own consultants directly contracted to you. Some of these are legal things, like for example, a geotechnical engineer. We can't hire those things. It's a conflict of interest for us and our insurance doesn't like it. So you get to do the soils report, no biggie. We think that you should consider bringing on a funding consultant. And we have some recommendations that you might consider. You may already have your own solutions, that's great. But we have some recommendations, not only for the upfront stuff and the eligibility, but once we get to the point where we're applying for funds for you, there's a lot of technicalities that go on. Maybe that's somebody on staff. Maybe you have that funding consultant who knows the ins and outs and ready to do it. If not, we have somebody that we can recommend to. And then last but not least, I know you have a phase 1 environmental study for the site. There might be a little more environmental work to do there, depending on how the city looks at it from the CEQA aspect. And then to round things up, it might require you to have a traffic engineer someday. That's typically something that we have a contract directly with the traffic study. And then on this side, there are some optional relationships that you could consider. And I'll explain these more in a slide that looks a little better than just text on the page. But you could go out and Blue Oak could establish a relationship with the general contractor as a way to deliver this project, to deliver the finished campus. There's also an opportunity that we see a lot of traffic schools taking advantage of lately, which is a lease-back setup. I'll describe that a little later too. And then lastly, a construction manager is something that we think you can have an optional relationship. They bring a lot of value to a project. They do cost money, so feel free to jump in anytime. No more questions. So I thought this slide would be helpful to kind of explain from the left side all the way to the right, from eligibility, where we're looking at what funds are available to you, all the way through construction administration. And it might be a little tough to read, but you're the first one. And we'll go top to bottom and look at all the different consultants that could be. Blue Oak, of course, you guys are in every single one of these things. Us as your architect, we're right there alongside. We look at the stage, usually in the design development process, we like to bring them in and have a preliminary discussion with their planning, their engineering, their other works departments, just to get the project on everybody's minds and see if there are any issues but basically up front, relating to the very end. And then also they'd be involved in the project process, of course. We think that the funding consultant that you can consider making use of should be here from the very beginning. There's a lot of discussion that we should be having and making sure we're taking advantage of all of this as we go through. And of course, we'll bring the project back to them around the time check phase. And then the funding application phase is really critical. There's a lot of technical stuff that has to happen. And then last but not least, the contractor or the construction manager is an option there, the optional relationship with Sheffield. We think that they bring a lot of value. And if you did have a relationship with a contractor or a construction manager as an assist, a design assist to the project, earlier on they started the project, the more benefit it is to you. They've done this before, right? They build buildings, that's their job. They see things that architects and designers just don't see, and they know the cost control of that in many ways. So having them up front, no later than the design development stage is great. But if you can get them in schematics or before, even better. And then of course they come in the bid phase, which is the second to last column on the right. I'll describe that later, but that's when you get bid from contractors and maybe go out to build the project in the construction administration. That was a lot. You good? Okay.
Good.
So to simplify things, if we look at the left side of that, up until the end of schematic design, that's what we might call a feasibility study. That's us as your designer going in and looking at the site. We'd have some consultants involved in that. I think it's really important to have a civil designer involved. And that first part of the project, of course, is followed up by the last part, which we would generically call project. We were asked to come prepared with talking points about fee for you. So for the feasibility study, just to see if things fit on the site, see if we can get a floor plan working for you, put together a program that has a list of all the elements that you want inside of your school. Usually those cost right around $10,000, a whole lot. And then for the bulk of it, from the end, or from there to the end of the project, construction administration, you finish building, everybody's happy. That usually tends to be about 4 to 6% of construction costs. And that's for architectural and structural design. Of course, it depends on construction type. If we're doing a building like a pre-engineered metal building, there's a lot less work for us. If we're doing a full ground up 2-story wood frame, metal frame building, there's a lot more work for us. So it tends to be higher.
And that doesn't, so those costs aren't gonna, any of those outside people, right? That's gonna be more your focus. Okay.
But if we get to the point where we get to help you figure out the rest of the fees and cost of the project, we'll be more than happy.
So in that feasibility study, would that be something we would look at, like what the whole budget is?
Absolutely. So those would be one of the consultants that we would think are crucial in the
Yeah.
feasibility phase. So funding specialist, probably a cost estimator that we would want to keep. I think a civil engineer is really important just because the site's right next to the creek. And then as of course as architectural and preliminary conceptual structure would be there as well, just to make sure that. So at the risk of boring everybody, and I'll try to keep this brief and concise, but I think it would probably be helpful to talk about 2 project delivery methods. If you've heard this before, somebody yell at me because this is a little nerdy here, but I think it's important. 2 really popular project delivery methods that we see with charter schools are design bid build and a lease leaseback scenario, and I'll tell you about each of those. So in the traditional design bid build, this is the project delivery method that's as old as time. BOCC could go out and you could consider hiring a construction manager, so as architect and engineer. And then eventually, once we develop the plans and the specifications for the building, you go out and get a general contractor. They of course hire the subcontractors. And the words on the page that I will read to you, if BOCC used it as design bid build as a project delivery method, an architect is hired, that would be us, to create design documents from which general contractors would prepare their bids. Optionally, BOCC could hire a construction manager to oversee the project and serve as the owner's architect. Pretty simple. Old school. Lease-back is a more creative method that we've had success with other charter schools using. It involves something that's related to the nonprofit side of things, but I'll save the best for last and explain that at the end. Lease-back. BOCC would go out and they would hire our GO as their architect and restructure them. We would also form a relationship with the lease or leaseback entity. You can call them the developer. It's basically what they would do for you, develop the project. And then, of course, as an option, the construction manager is usually involved in these sorts of deals. They could be part of the lease-leaseback entity of the developer, or they can be separate. And then the lease-leaseback entity are the folks that go out and get the general contractor, and they take care of all that and pay for it. What that means for you I'll try to summarize it best I can. Blue Oak would own the piece of property, they would lease it for a nominal amount to the entity, which would be typically a contractor or a developer. There are builders who do the development service for you. They build a school on that site, and then that entity would typically lease the finished school and the site back to you for a specific period of time at a specified rental price. At the end of the lease, the school and the site become property of you. And Blue Oak may also consider forming a nonprofit entity to own the school and lease it back to Blue Oak. We've seen a lot of charter schools do that. I think I mentioned it to some folks on our facilities call next week, but we're really close with Casey Taylor from Chief Turns. She said the first thing that Blue Oak needs to do is go from now. The nonprofit is what owns the school. It's something that you're familiar with. I didn't want to print out a whole bunch of paper to bring with me. This is QR code, right? You can scan it with your phone or print out if it's of interest to you, or I'd be happy to share links to these with you. The one on the left is a list of financial consultants in the North State. I think there's about 6 on there. Some of them we've worked with, some of them we haven't, but we like to give recommendations of multiples.
That's
At least
the funding consultant.
What's that?
That's the funding consultant.
That's right.
you're talking about? Yeah.
Yep. And then the second option there would be project delivery options, a little more description on what I told you about. It has some pros and cons. You might have already had these discussions, so forgive me if I'm repeating something that you've already heard. LIC is the Local Interaction Support Corporation. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have a lot of great resources. That link will take you to a page that is really long, and it has everything from wish lists to think about when you're first talking about designing your school, all the way through construction administration stuff. It's a great resource. And then last but not least, that's another document from LISC, which is about the bidding process. I won't talk too much about that, but on the first delivery method where I talked about design to build, there's a couple different ways that you can ask contractors to give you bids on the project. And that document will explain those in detail. So far, so good?
Yes.
We're getting to the fun stuff here, I promise. So this is a bit of a recap of what we already talked about, but what we hope we can convey to you today is that RGA and our approach is that we are local. We have experience and we are qualified in the charter school sector. For us, these conversations and the proposal to you is just the start. We really do look forward to doing business with you and continuing our relationship for decades to come. We're known for our flexibility and responsiveness. We have a really good ability to digest things really fast. Our staff is nimble. We don't have a lot of overhead costs, and my employees and our employees talk to us directly. We don't have a lot of middlemen and middle management, so we're really efficient in that way. We love to have interaction with owners and users, and I'll describe that to you a little bit later. And we are known for getting timely approvals from the city on projects like this. The results for you, we hope we have an unparalleled level of communication with you. We have really rigorous in-house quality control and assurance methods. And we have a legacy of proven success. This is a slide that helps me explain to you the process that I like to use when we start having discussions with the people who are end up using it. And the title is Building Consensus, right? Because one of my most important jobs at the beginning of the phase of the project is to help get information about the facility and the design and what you want to see in the project from the people who are actually going to be using it. That comes in a lot of different ways, and it's kind of a challenge sometimes to corral that into something that's useful for the project. But we've been through it before, and this is kind of how we do it. We like to inform people and make sure that they understand the scope of the work and the constraints that we're up against here. We like to also point out opportunities that we can look at when we're designing the project. From there, we like to lead the conversations and listen to what folks have to say. That usually takes the form of workshops or informal discussions. But sometimes we like to take stakeholders out and actually do site tours. Let's go hang out on the piece of property and actually look at things like. And then we like to give directed input to help guide people towards the sorts of conversations that we want to have, right? And turn everybody loose all at once. And then we like to empower folks, whether that's a consensus building effort that involves us in leading that discussion, or that's something that is taken care of by your board. Sometimes we do have folks who have a committee, and they're the ones who are responsible for providing the information that but ultimately trying to build a consensus. And all the while discussing concepts and ideas. Again, using our power to help you with visualizations and not just giving you a bunch of lines on paper, but actually showing you and helping you experience and feel what it looks like. And then it's a process of feedback, improving and iteration, and having interaction with stakeholders. We do want to set up approvals and reviews. We set milestones at the beginning of the project, so we know there's a deliverable about 50% of the way through, perhaps 75%, 90%, something like that. And then last but not least, we take those iterations that we've gotten from all the design work. We, as your experts, run it through our quality control processes and all of that. We communicate how we're implementing the things that you have asked for in your design. And now the fun stuff. So I explained this on our facilities call, so forgive me if you've heard this story before. This was the first charter school project that I ever did. I went to Chico State, got a bachelor's in civil engineering, and then I went down to Southern California and worked on my master's for 3 years. Got my master's in architecture from the other Cal, and then worked in Orange County for a number of years. I'm a product of the charter school education system. From second grade all the way through high school, I went to nothing but charter schools. I lived in a lot of different places, so I have the benefit of seeing charter schools not here in Chico, which there were 3 or 4 that I went to over the years, but also down in Mammoth Lakes, which is a huge active community, right? And then I also lived up in Redding for a number of years, and went to Chrysalis, which is a charter school next to Turtle Bay, called Lincoln. And that was my younger years as a child. My education back in those days consisted of going out and walking along the Sacramento River in our, and our field trips were going camping for class, right? It was a very heavily nature-based school, and a lot of our curriculum was focused on the outdoors. I think that did a lot of good for me because still to this day, I'm not that camp. I'm a musician, and those things that I learned in that school stuck with me. And then I went to Southern California, and I got to actually put those things into use in designing a school. This is the Environmental Nature Center. It is a nature center first and foremost, but they also have a preschool that's attached to it. And their design philosophy was about how we connect the preschool activities to the nature center. So there was a really healthy outdoor program that consisted of community gardens. There's an overhead shot here in a second that will show you there's a lot of outdoor trail spaces, and the connection between the indoor and outdoor was kind of not fair because at Southern California they have some of the best weather in the world. They also had a seemingly unlimited supply of funding. So I made this joke last week, but this was the coolest charter school I've ever designed. It was also the most expensive charter school I've ever designed. But to reel things back in a little bit, we also have experience in the local community of building things that are, brace yourselves, a little less extravagant. But they are cost competitive, and it is a very real space in a campus that we built for Stream Charter School up in Oroville. That is a learning facility for people that changes kids' lives. So this facility, in certain ways, has a similar impact that really cool school does. So we understand budget constraints, and this is actually a Crane-Junior Metal Board. We did a gymnasium, classroom building. We've also done work for Corby Charter School. This is their Elementary Resource Center, which is another pre-engineered metal building. But even with something that was so budget constrained as this project, we were able to find ways to, for example, connect this science classroom with the outdoors. They had a really cool courtyard space there at the time, and we put in a roll-up-class store to help with that indoor outdoor connection. So there are ways to keep a hold of those design philosophies and the things that changed my childhood. And we try to implement them in a way that we can all afford and more realistic for them. A couple more slides here. I showed this last week too, but this is a fly-through, very preliminary design study for Golden Eagle Charter School in Shasta County. We provided that project delivery method in a guaranteed max setting. It means that we designed it to what was called a guaranteed maximum set of drawings. And the contractor gave them a price and said, I will build your school for this amount. And that was his guaranteed maximum. So we got maybe, I don't know, 30, 40% of the way through the whole design. And we realized that the people we were designing for didn't fully understand what they were getting with that guaranteed maximum price. That's another project delivery method that I didn't mention, but that is one thing we can consider. So we made an animation for them, and this was intended to help make the 2D lines on paper more real and help people understand and feel the space. This is actually the one we did the virtual reality walkthrough too. So it's the fly-through that the software that we use to design from beginning to end, again, the 3D BIM software, allows us to do this from very early on. So even if we get through the feasibility study phase, there's a good chance that we can help you understand in 3 dimensions. There's only a couple more, but I seem to have broken myself here.
Yeah.
More flying, less
There
talking.
was more
Yeah.
last week.
There was.
Is it still online?
So,
I think that's true.
no, I'll keep talking as that's doing its thing, and I'm glad we brought paper. Oh, here we go. You just gotta start back up again here. The last of these projects, or the last of these slides here are intended to help show a little bit about what RG is. So when it comes back up here, there's only a couple more, and then after that, looking forward to talking.
I think a part of it is the local aspect of it. We take a sense of pride in everything that we do. And a big part of it is like, these are places where we want our families to enjoy, our friends to enjoy. And we want to see buildings, not just the drawings that we do. We want to see the completed product all the way through. We want to use it and enjoy it.
Yeah, and I didn't mention it, but you know, our colleagues and our coworkers, we all know somebody or have somebody who's gone to a charter school. Lucky for us, we get to help create those spaces. Thanks for bearing with me. So this is one more charter school that we did up in Reading. This is Phoenix Charter Academy. This was also a heavily nature-based outdoor school. It was a really complicated project at the beginning because they were trying to actually set up a bond measure to fund the school. So they had legal counsel that was on their team we worked with to help create the bonds, to launch the bonds. Ultimately, the bond measure was passed, so the project was not successfully funded. I think that Patricia Doherty is still doing something with the school, but she's moved on. I think they're going to launch it in the instead.
It's like for those pre-engineered, like this design. Yeah. Okay.
So this is a pre-engineered metal building that we helped craft. The process is that our conceptual design drawings go to a pre-engineered metal building designer, the people that build it, and they tell you some pretty cool stuff up front. They'll tell you exactly what it's going to cost and when you can get it. Pre-engineered metal buildings are really cost effective, and we have ways to work with them that make them a little less atrocious.
And the people that you work with do 2 stories as well as 2 stories.
Some of them will, yeah. There are certain pre-engineered metal building people who won't do 2 stories, but doing one for Community Park, we're doing a climbing there, and it's 2 stories. And that is, CBC is one of the companies. I think there's about 3 in this one. It is a possibility.
Our engineering team can fill in the gaps. If we've gotten very creative with working with buildings and projects that are essentially 2 stories. Working with their regular.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm doing.
Sorry, it's 2 stories with cap.
With pre-engineered metal buildings, it's probably a push to go to 3. I have seen it done, but it's difficult. At that point, it's probably better to go with a more cost-competitive construction method like steel. I watched the video I think that Jennifer put together, and I saw some really good stuff in that, including one about trying to reduce the building footprint and go up rather than out of it. I think, based on what I understand, the program as it was laid out in the presentation, and maybe a couple of things that I've heard, I think we could do it in 2 stories. I feel pretty good about that. I'm doing the K-12 charter school campus for Achievable Paradise right now. That's looking like it's going to end up being about a $14 million project. They're a bigger school, they have a bigger program, they have more needs than Blue Oak does. But that was tending towards wood frame construction, 2-story. You may have seen the Fort Butte charter school building, the high school. That's pretty similar. Brandon Slater is actually the technical construction a contractor assist on the project. So he's been on it since the very beginning, conceptual phases. And he's steering to us towards, from the cost perspective, doing wood frame construction. So it all
Because
depends.
the costs are similar enough that you get more
Yeah.
flexibility in design element.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have a limitation of anything we can design.
Yeah.
It's just that building style does have a little bit of limitation, but a great price point for if it's that right need.
So this was pre-engineered metal building. You're looking at kind of the office end of the building. At the end there, in that last slide that I showed was a portico share, which was also a pre-engineered metal building. It was meant to help with drop-off assists, so kids were getting out of the cars undercover. But more than that, in charter schools, you've probably eaten at the restaurants that RGA has designed. Our kind of fame, of course, is here in Nevada, not just here, but also on the East Coast, North Carolina. But you probably also walked by our projects. We do a lot of work for the university. This is the Outdoor Recreation Center. It's a series of plazas and basically an outdoor living room that helps support the kids who are inside of their center doing activities, but outdoors. So a little more mindful stuff here, meditation, yoga sessions, stuff like that. Again, trying to connect the indoor to the outdoor. This was the Zen Rock Garden. But you may have shopped at the stores that we've designed. This is Amy and Hobbies in their new headquarters facility here in Chico. You may have gone to the some of the medical offices that we've designed. This is your neighbor just across the way here in the park. We did that whole block there, including the Penny Associates Lawyers building, which is just down the way. I'll say it again, like I said last week, but some people love Marion Park, some people don't. Like it or love it, we are in charge of just the architecture. So the master plan concept, I cannot take credit for it. That is Dan. And it's accepted in a lot of ways, but we have been lucky in being able to shape the architecture of it, including not just these projects, but I'll mention it again. There's an apartment complex, a very large apartment complex just to the west of the property that you bought and to the south across that week. We designed the whole complex. It's currently back with the developer and the contractor for his work on it. I can't show you pictures, but it's pretty cool. And I brought this project up last week too, and I'll say it again. This is just down the way from you, also on the Chico Creek on the north side. So this is the Humboldt apartment complex. It was right across the street from CVS, kind of on the southwest corner. And it was designed to avoid something that I think is really important for your project as well. Zero discharge to there. So it was a challenge on this one to work with a civil engineer to basically drain all of the stormwater runoff from the roofs and the sidewalks and the driveways and the patios internally, and then discharge it to the city so that they can do it instead of draining it into the creek. The second that you start discharging stuff to the creek, you have to start talking to the Army Corps of Engineers, the Water Resources Control Board from the state, and those are two names that we so this was a project that explains what I think we could do at your facility as well. And then last but not least, you've probably seen our office. We're just down there in the park in Skyway. If you're ever in the area, please stop by and say hi. That's it. And like I said,
I have two questions. So, because you work with the city, often. So what do you think for a project that we're doing? Like, how long of a time frame do you think the city's going to take from beginning to like, okay, go ahead and
really good question. Really sorry. They used to send plan checks out to third-party plan check consultants. They just had a regime change. I use that joke. And they switched over to a new fellow who's likely going to be the building director there. His name's Nick. Nick has sworn to us that he's keeping most projects in-house rather than sending.
And you're happy about that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Working with third-party code consultants, like people who sit down in Santa Rosa or Sacramento or LA, they don't understand much. And they like to take the book and apply it into the project. And what that means for you is a more expensive design, more expensive construction cost because they're going to ask for every state that they can.
A lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
The interpretation of the code from those agencies is on the very, very conservative side.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's a good side. The bad side, maybe, is the city is notoriously slow on things. And it's not always the building department that's the people that are holding it. So even though Nick in the building department is going to start doing their in-house plan checks, and I think that's a good thing, The rest of the departments, planning, engineering, public works, have always done their own in-house plan checks, and nothing's changed there. So quite often, we will end up getting a round of comments from the building folks, and they say, sorry, we can't release it to you yet because planning and engineering and public works have not completed the comments. And then it sits in the queue for another 2 to 3 weeks until they finish up to the second phase. We have ways around that. We have relationships with the building department, and we have been successful in getting preliminary plan check from them, so we can be working on building related stuff while the rest of the departments are. It's a long way of answering your question, but that gives a little context.
Yeah.
They have promised us that in first round of plan check responses, it's 6 to 8 weeks to get the first round of comments back. The second round of plan check comments, they promise that it's 4 to 6 weeks. And then from there on, it's usually about 2 weeks depending on what the comments are. So add that all up, and we would love to put together a project timeline for you. I understand we need to complete by 2026. I've got no further comments. And I thank you last week. But more than enough time.
Kind of along those lines, we heard different preferences, city versus DSA.
Yeah.
Do you have preference?
We do. So we do work with DSA through the university. As charter schools, you're probably. I used to work on K through 12 and higher ed projects down in LA, and those were full campus designs for elementary schools, or full designs for a recreation center for Cal State Northridge. Those went through a full DSA review. That means DSA is looking at structure and accessibility and architecture and fire life safety. The fire marshal, the Office of Fire Safety at the state level, everybody's looking at it, right? That's a lot. And it's for all good reasons, right? Public schools and the funding that's associated with them is held to a higher level of scrutiny. I'm really happy that I don't work in that world. The city of Chico is a lot different to work with. Most importantly, there's a face you can put to the name, and the relationships that we have with those people make the design process and the review process so much more enjoyable. And also, like I was mentioning, it results in a better design for you and a better construction cost for you is part of it. So on the whole, I think the answer is Chico is better than DSA.
Do you feel like there's similar turnaround times?
In some ways, so DSA, for example, we have to file an application or a form that's called DSA 1. We have to do that 6 weeks in advance of when we actually submit the project. There's a whole lot more red tape and paperwork that you have to do with DSA stuff. The city of Chico is pretty simple. So once that's in, the review process has started. They're, in my experience, about the same.
I know that you've done a lot of schools and a lot of buildings, so your work with any Waldorf specific.
Not, no, and I've been doing some research about Waldorf schools. Well, I guess I should answer that question. Yeah, we designed this space.
Yeah.
But it's a little different. Yeah. No, but what's interesting to me is that a lot of the design concepts that I both saw in Jennifer's video and some of the research that we do ourselves, they're a way of implementing good architectural design. And the implementation of those is unique to Waldorf, but the concept of looking and listening and understanding what you as the end user or you as operator of the school want to see is not something that we're on. It's just the process of specific things like a wall painting, right? I looked into that and tried to understand why that is, and it makes sense, right? And it's an architectural principle that we're very familiar with. So no, specific schools, Waldorf, this one. But the concepts and the thought process and the backing up from behind that is something that is architecture.
It's intriguing anyway to want to do them as well. And that's kind of excited us about it.
What's RGA stand for?
Russell Galloway Associates. Yeah, Matt Galloway, Don Russell.
So you think even if we're going stick build at June of 26 is that? Okay.
It's a good question.
Yeah, what is the question?
Well, a 2-year time frame, like kind of what, or we were talking about So Kevin and I had talked about tiny parties of the way.
Yeah.
And he, some of, we've heard 3 years, 4 years, he doesn't think it is that long, so we're,
Are you basically thinking,
Like a
do we
move-in.
have enough time to design a wood frame structure?
yeah, just because, that's, I think, more design work,
It
right?
is.
Design and build.
Yeah.
That's,
Correct.
Yeah.
with a school, we have we need to be in there, and you know this.
Yeah.
We need to move, so we need to get out of here, we need to get over there. And during the summer is the best time frame to do it.
What is that timeline look like? When do you have to be out of this location?
We're
Well, a year, really, I mean, but we can do an extension, I mean, so really, we are, where are we at? November already?
Yeah, so we have to put in for,
We're not in August
almost,
anymore.
yeah, we're not in August anymore. We have to
When-
put
when
in
is
for an
that year?
extension by December.
Yeah, by December, we have to put in our, we need to have a very good idea by December when we're
We officially have a 2-year extension. I mean, that's what's,
Opportunity.
what, but we're also still negotiating that, so.
Very simple.
But, everything's possible.
Yeah, and he can be like,
I didn't want to
They have
ask,
he's
plans too.
he's a landlord, he has a job, he has
They
a,
have plans, yeah.
he-
But a move in date 2 years from now, you're not batting an eye?
so we're currently doing the K-12 campus with the chief charter school, and that's a pretty similar time. We started 3 weeks ago, so you're not far behind. And there, like I said, it's a larger campus, it's a larger school, but it's pretty similar. Stories there.
And their plan is summer of 26 is when they're trying to be in.
As a in the very early stages of the project, I would recommend that we put together a timeline. That means to take in a lot of information from a lot of sources, right? You, of course, the types of things that you just told me, the funding consultants and the availability of funds, perhaps even to be measured. And then thinking through all the things that we do, review processes, design processes, and helping to us take takes a village, we put all the information together. But off the cuff and thinking about it from our experience that time. And I actually thank Tricia because that's more generous than a lot of times we get handed sometimes. So.
A lot of time we get told yesterday.
Yeah.
That's only
I
really.
mean, that is what we really want to do.
But wait, just to get super stickler on this, a 2-year time frame is the winter.
It's
not the
because
summer.
we're now in, we're no longer in
Right.
August, that's when it's when
So,
we start.
I mean,
It's gonna be,
we're not gonna move in winter.
it would be 18 months,
we have
It is cool.
We have,
Yes.
okay, so that is a positive.
It is a possibility.
So we
Good
should stop saying
moving
summer of 26.
Get a builder on
That's-
board with it.
Yeah, we're moving along with you right now.
There's different ways you can strategize it too. You can phase the project out, you can apply for foundation loan permits. Things that you can do to accelerate the timeline. And you can meet all those kind of benchmarks and do design phases.
To get a little more discussion around the wood frame versus changing metal building discussion. Metal building designers are notorious, and honestly, we've designed some wood frame buildings and get us back there. So,
We got backlog through the COVID era pretty big. It started catching up, but we've turned other metal buildings into different building types on our own. We had to meet timelines.
any questions? Keep coming.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
We understand what a big undertaking it is to go from here to this. And we look forward to being part of that journey with you, and even earnestly. Thank you for considering us, and look forward to talking with you.
Thank you both for making that.
Yeah.
And I'll reach out after
Cool.
today.
That sounds
What our
great.
next steps. Now you guys are free to go have your whatever day it is.
Yeah. Well, we were reorganizing the basement of my house, so I'm not sure.
We're out of 2-year-old and a 4-year-old.
They should be in there.
We've all been there.
We'll see.
When did the last group for 9th end?
No, we have one more.
Oh, do you really? All right.
Which band are we supposed to get that?
Is it no preference at all for mine?
Is it Low?
Yeah.
Okay.
They played at their wedding.
Oh, right, but I didn't catch the band name.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like, who?
You don't remember, Ryan was the one sitting in the corner. So
I actually do kind of remember.
Okay.
The all night, he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
running all of the equipment.
That's
So-
Yeah, yeah.
I was so happy to hear that you sent all the kids to Ashland. Is that
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that would.
Good
He
job.
showed up there and he was the only person that I didn't recognize. I was like,
You know what's funny is we walked in the front door and I honestly did not know that it was tied to Blue Oak.
oh, yeah.
And then I saw some of the marketing material. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank
See
Good
you
night,
around.
thank you so much.
Are they on the like
Oh, yeah, I think maybe you missed it, but Mr. F needs to stay with this session.
any of these?
Whoever, you know, and that's-
Oh, whoever you
Yeah,
We
yeah.
did,
Well, we
yes.
want your recommendation.
Thank you.
The process we're doing covers whether it's one of their.
It's like your big-
so this whole process.
Big thing.
Well, we do
Team,
an annual
company.
strategic planning
Yeah.
session. You know.
Those are good to have. Yeah, that any of those things are for you guys.
Thank you.
Anywhere? So this is Studio Demo. Alright, I'll let them introduce themselves and then we can introduce ourselves. Where we get, they made, well, some of them made drive by. And I have your PowerPoint that works, so I will pull that up with whoever wants.
Sure, sure. Do you want to advance the slides? Would you like us to advance the slides? How does?
I can get whatever you want, I can do
Okay,
it,
if
or
you
you
have
guys
it,
can
yeah,
give
if
it,
you have
yeah.
it, that'd be great.
Yeah,
I can
and
stand
then-
up.
Let me share my screen. So do you guys want to start, you want us to introduce ourselves first, so you know?
That'd be great,
Okay.
yeah.
Donna, you wanna start instead of me doing it? Why don't you guys- Okay. introduce
I'm
yourself.
Donna Kresge, I am a member of the Charter Council.
I'm Tricia and I'm a member of the Charter.
I'm Vicki Monica, and I'm chair of the Charter Council as a community member.
Ryan, with the council.
Susan Dominican, I'm the executive director.
I'm Buck Aaronstone, facilities manager.
I think my title was much better.
And then we have Jennifer, who, if you saw our video, Jennifer did a video about our
Yes.
welcome
Yeah, that was
to
great.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's a fourth grade teacher, and then Maggie is our executive.
Just this one here.
The big one will go forward and if you
Okay.
need to go back to
Go
one
back,
under
yeah.
that, we'll take it back.
Thank you.
There you go.
Go a little too
It's a
far.
little sensitive.
Well, we're Studio W Architects. Obviously, very happy to be here to present to you. Just a quick agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, some relevant experience, some project delivery opportunities that you have available to you when it comes to delivering this project. We start to look at some site opportunities, look at the site that you have, start to think about some solutions and concepts that might help you through that process. You had asked Tricia to add a couple of things, talk a little bit about how we approach our fees, and then also perhaps other funding opportunities that we might see. And then a little bit at the very end about what differentiates us as a firm. So I'll start with myself. I'm Brian Whitmore. I am the president and CEO of Studio W, so I own the firm. Somewhat unique in our marketplace to have a small firm with a sole owner that you can be a part of when it comes to the projects that we do. My role is really as a principal in charge, meaning that I'm your primary promise keeper. So the contract that we sign with the district, obviously on behalf of you guys, we want to make sure we keep those promises. And it's very important for me and our reputation as a firm to make sure that we do that. We are a small firm, and so I often say I will be there all the way through, from beginning to end, part of the project, oftentimes like a senior project manager working with our staff through that process.
Hi, my name is Tyler Copeland. For this project, I will be the primary point of contact with senior project manager. I'm an architect, client leader at Studio W, but I'm also a 20-year chief architect. And I kind of think of myself as the prime facilitator, right? A single point of contact, it's a conduit between collaboration with the stakeholders, our talented team, all the rest of the consultants.
Rachel Timothy, I'm the design leader for the company, and my role here would be just to provide some input and guidance, the design perspective, and also help you guys with programming needs, and just providing continuity and support to the team, to Ty and Melissa who's here too. Make sure that the vision is carried through all the way to
My name is Melissa Speck. I am a project architect with the city of Dublin. And I'm also a developer. So I spent 10 years in the Alice Burning Office of Developers in Sacramento. And so I have been through the program for quite a while, and I was a very active participant in their transition from their old campus to their at and developing on students. And the groundwork for developing the building. So Waldorf is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm probably in kindergarten Waldorf right now.
I think we all would.
We could go down.
We can host it in there. That's a good idea.
Let's go. Kindergarten red. Yeah, that's it. Okay.
My son became a baker because of the kindergarten bread. He's a baker today, so.
So we also listed some of our preferred consultants, more than likely some of the folks that we would augment our team with, structural, mechanical, electrical. Most notably is civil engineering with North Star. Part of the reason we have Ty here today as part of our Chico office is that we had partnered with North Star for many years. And their architectural arm we acquired as a fourth office as part of our team in California. And so we have a very close knit, in fact, they're just down the street, they share an office. North Star obviously has a big presence in Marion Park and property. The district down there. So a little bit about our firm. We are experts in public education design, and that includes charter schools. About 92% just by virtue of numbers is revenue that's generated by virtue of the work that we do with public schools and charter schools all throughout the state. We do work all throughout the state. As you can see, we've got offices in Sacramento. It's really our main office, Chico, San Jose, and Newport Beach. So we work with a variety of different folks from, say, public, private, charter, non-denominational, all sorts of different groups that focus on education. That's really our bread and butter when it comes to education throughout the state. I mentioned a lot of the charter school work. This is just a plethora of some of the images of recent projects. We're going to go through a couple of them in a little bit more detail. But everything from Natomas Charter School, one of the first charters in the state there, in the North Sacramento region, to Kairos in Vacaville. We work with a charter development company called Red Hook, which is down in Southern California, that will buy land and lease back. I think the most northern they've done now is in Hayward. So they've been a good partner of ours over time. I think the focus really with charter schools differently from public schools is the way you garner funding, the way you go about delivering your projects. Obviously the curriculum, the focus of a lot of our charter school clients is very different. But again, a lot of the things are very much the same when it comes to public education in terms of the types of environments that we can make sure that work for these groups. And so we'll share some of the relevancy in some of their projects, and then we'll even talk about some of the things that we're potentially working on.
Relative experience, I mean, you're all familiar with this image of Marion Park. I've had the distinct pleasure of working with Dan Gonzalez and his team at Gonzalez Development Company. We were fortunate to actually run the first commission, first project we did out there just south of the courthouse. You see it on the upper right there, the foundation building where the development company headquarters are presently. But we worked through many different project types there in the area. Of course, worked hand in hand with North Star, who has intimate knowledge of the site. And I think first and foremost for your project, I spent countless hours out there through all the seasons. I've stood on your site, really getting to understand the distinct attributes, especially the possibility of activating that greenway in Little Chico Creek. I mean, it's such a wonderful site for this type of learning.
And one of the things I'll mention here too, we do of course work with Chico Unified School District. We're actually working right now on Little Chico Creek Elementary School. So the TK expansion and the remodel of their administration offices and things, obviously very close to the site. regionally, we've done a lot of work here. So Chico Unified, Paradise Unified's been one of our biggest clients in the last few years. We did all the work up there as a result of the camp fire. So we've been up to Paradise since the fire was there. You'll see all of the work that's been done. We work at the high school, we work at all of the elementary schools. That's all we're on. We also work at Thermal or Durham. So we've done quite a bit. Rachel.
Yeah, so for each of our projects, particularly for charter schools, we always make sure that we keep in mind the pedagogy of the make sure that the program is in, as well as, keeping the budget forward, because we in charter schools, we always kind of have to keep that in mind as a budget constraints. For Kairos, our approach really was to do the phased approach. It's this development is in a new housing development. It's a special planning district, and it's close to a neighborhood. There's potential for them to do a joint use there, possibly joint use with funding. Also, it is a phased approach due to funding and its needs. So that's why it shows the first phase being an immediate need. So that was helpful for them to fund that first. The rest of the finger wings, classroom finger wings, they're phased out. They could be ground up, but also we designed it in such a way that it could easily flip into a modular construction. Next slide, please. And so there it is. So it's a ground up facility. It's a phased master plan. And right now, currently, because we are phasing this, we are discussing a modular component to what was originally stick-built for just classroom, just because they think they need it fast and they need it on budget. For Natoma's charter school, this was a fully built campus, right? So also their programming, they also wanted to increase their enrollment numbers because they're such a popular charter in this area. There's new housing development on this portion of it. Because it is already fully built, we are going to demolish and replace some of the existing buildings. So it's basically maximizing the efficiency of the sites without minimizing the program. So that was the goal. Also, the goal was to phase this construction. Because you see that theater building in the back, that's a stick built. That's a stick built. But everything else is modular because of timing again, budget, and space constraints. So the 2-story is a modular building along with the elevator. It's a modular component as well. So that fits their programming, fits their budget, and it allows them to get it done quick because they want to be operational with minimum downtime. So phasing it also helps with that, meeting their school schedules, their delivery schedules for the building. It's a phased master plan. Means I got it. You got it all. I got it all.
So you're good. The last project we want to share with you very quickly is a project called Serendipity School. It's not a charter, it's actually a private school. It's in Belmont, California. This was a pre-existing public school site that was surplus sold from the district. And our task was to add additional classrooms, multi-purpose facility, and also some additional playgrounds in connection with the existing neighborhood. Pretty tight site, a whole lot of different varying topography that we had to deal with at this site. You'll see that here in a moment. As Rachel mentioned earlier, modular construction, you'll hear that term quite a bit. Often looking for cost-effective ways to get buildings out there quicker and for better prices. Obviously, these are permanent buildings. These are either slab on grade or there's some sort of raised foundation, but on grade in terms of either a wood foundation or a metal foundation of some kind. We're not talking about portable buildings, and as you can see here, for all intents and purposes, they look permanent, but the purpose is that they're really built quicker. We have some modularity that occurs in a factory, typically in the Central Valley, where you can bring these pieces out and assemble them a lot quicker. The existing building on the left-hand side, the new buildings there on the right-hand side. I think the magic of this site, maybe what hopefully is more relevant to you, is these playgrounds that we developed. Now, we had an interesting challenge that we had to solve between where the buildings that we placed and the neighborhood park that was up on the upper side of the hill. we had to develop this ADA compliant walkway that connected it. So we had this circuitous walkway that went through. And what it did was it left these little eddy areas. And they were just these fabulous little playground spaces. You can see everything from musical instruments as part of that playground to this little hut type structure. Really wonderful, obviously, their curriculum, very much like Waldorf curriculum, comes into nature. Those connections to the outdoor spaces and indoor spaces was really important to them. So we thought this might be a good project to show. So let's talk about pragmatics for a little bit, and then we'll get into some of the creative pieces. You have a project to deliver, a limited amount of funds. We want to be able to manage that project effectively for you. I think it's very important when you hire an architecture firm, they understand how to develop a project, not just design it, but really develop it and manage it all the way through. One of the things that I pride myself in personally is that I developed projects. I developed commercial office buildings and residential projects. I used to sit on planning commission for many years in my hometown. And so for me, it's very important to understand how do we deliver this project effectively, how do we keep you on schedule and budget, meeting all the requirements that you have. One of the things we talked about a little bit already, and with Tricia and also a little bit with the district, is do you have to go through the Department of State Architect, or can you stay with the local jurisdiction here in Chico? My understanding is that you can stay with the local jurisdiction. That's good. DSA, while it's, I'd say, mandated across, you have to meet Field Act compliance. There's some other costs involved in that. The only nuance with the local jurisdictional approval, but I think it will actually work in your favor, is you have to go through a planning entitlement process. Now, there's some talk that maybe you could be exempted from that process, and we can talk more with Chico Unified about that. It's really environmental impacts, what's your conditional use, how many students do you see there, what's the traffic, what's the number of those things that it generates, what does it look like at some level from a design review, those kinds of things. One of the benefits I will say, though, going through that process, Rachel mentioned this a little bit with Kairos and Vacaville, is that we can kind of master plan that site and think about, as funds become available, are there things that perhaps you might construct to where, if you don't have the funds to build everything day one, you can build it in phases, and that phasing plan is sort of cemented with that entitlement process through, city planning department. Again, we'll talk a little bit more with Chico Unified to find out, can they exempt, do you need to go through that process? Because there is some time and some expense as well. Prevailing wage versus non-prevailing wage is really important, because prevailing wage is expensive. So right now, it's our understanding that yes, you would have to go through prevailing wage because you're using bond funds. This is district property, so therefore it needs to meet the requirements of a contract code. Prevailing wage adds probably about 25% the cost of a project over normal, say, privatized construction, because you're talking about 50% of the cost of 50% of the labor, typically, and labor constitutes about 50% of the project. So that's where that 25% increase comes from. Now, talk a little bit later about possible funding sources. Depending on where that funding might come from, it's possible that you might be able to carve up the project and have some components that are not different. So I think that's a conversation we want to have again, along with the district, and try to find out ways to navigate that as best as possible. Contractor procurement, again, the district sort of saying, we want to go design and build, which is traditional. We design the project, it goes out to bid, lowest responsible contractor is awarded the bid, they move forward. Challenge with that a little bit is, we have to get the estimating right on, we have to get the scheduling right on. Long lead items, long procurement items, things like electrical switch gear, that sort of stuff. When we try to procure that, it's hard to do that until we've got the contractor on board. So we have to design the project, typically get an agency approved, then put it out to bid, then they can get on board. Now they're ordering material. Sometimes that material can be a year or 18 months out. We're trying to compress that because we're saying costs in construction continue to rise. I understand you've got a lease here, maybe it's not optimum, and so we want to try to get you into a more permanent solution quicker by going through that process. Mentioned earlier about modular concepts, those can save time, those can save resources as well. We have a number of relationships with different modular groups. The one on the upper right-hand side, I think, would be an excellent fit. It's a product called TimberQuest. It was developed by a company called XL Construction in Sacramento. You can see the wood, it's based on a heavy timber construction. It really works well with the Waldorf type of environment, the exposed wood and those sorts of things. The one on the lower right-hand side is an American Modular Systems, AMS Gen 7. very high performance, sustainable, high volume of natural light, all of those kinds of things. So there's a lot of different products that I think we can help you navigate the pros and cons of so that you can select perhaps some optimum. And it may not mean that everything's modular, maybe components that are stick-built, we may find that stick-built actually outperforms modular. That's part of our services, that's part of the value through that process.
Site opportunities. Well, after watching the wonderful programming video that you put together, we couldn't help but be inspired to do some studies ourselves. This first option here was really just vetting what you probably already discovered. This is showing all single-story modules. It could be modular, it could be stick-built, but it's accounting for the programming we understand, 21 classrooms, a multi-purpose room, work room, kitchen, all the functions listed in that video. And it accounts for about 28,000 to 31,000 square feet. But it leaves very little of the site behind. Now, I don't know if we got the parking count just right, but when you're on the side of being conservative, but there's a drop-off zone and all those things. But what this, I think, this fails to do, like you probably assumed, is provide more creative space, outdoor space for the class, and engage with Little Chico Creek better. So as we move on to the next two options, both of these explored two-story, like you mentioned. The distinct difference between this option and the one we'll see later is where the early childhood areas are. This one is in the upper right-hand corner next to the intersection of Bruce. It has its own space, forest play area, that's something that can be curtailed just to that learning environment, and then it engages with the greater campus. And I think you'll see a reoccurring theme that we have through here is this amphitheater quad space. We wanted to try and strike a balance between formal and informal play. This has on the southwest side two-story classroom buildings to house grade level classrooms and additional functions. And then it's anchored in the center with admin and multi-purpose. The big difference between this and the next slide is that relocation of early childhood. We pulled it away from the busy street, a bit more inboard. It has kind of a more direct private access to Little Chico Creek. It still engages the greater campus right at the admin area with the multi-purpose room. And we've created this kind of court with the two-story buildings that abut Bruce Avenue. And again, this is a balance between formal and informal play. And I think obviously the biggest ingredient here is we're inspired by your program and designing in a silo, and it doesn't have your voice. I mean, this is an option, it's not the right option. That right option is going to be through collaboration with your stakeholders. Because I can't think of a greater experience than leveraging this design exercise as also a learning opportunity with staff and students. But I think to speak to some of the more intimate details and opportunities of the site. Yeah.
I think one of the things that we're really considering, especially with this theme, is that you're keeping the younger children, the ones who are in a smaller, more discreet, more protected area, by keeping them on the main street. But then with the older grades, having them in the two-story, closer to a natural movement, protected, part of the world. I think this theme also focuses on buildings, on the interconnection of the nature, the opportunity for exploration and connection along the paths, down to the creek for the nature walks, the wonderful innovative aspiration.
A couple of things you'll notice with all three options is big focus on safety and security. That's a hallmark design approach, making sure that the buildings really kind of form a protect space on the interior of the campus. Looking at, like we said, sort of the pros and cons between one-story and two-story. Two-story is a bit more expensive. You've got vertical circulation, you've got the elevator, you've got stairs. But there may be, again, some pros and cons between looking at single-story versus two-story, depending on our costs. You know, one of the things we kind of talked about internally, how much we're looking at, how much invest in something like this. 28,000 square feet, if that's roughly what the program sort of suggests, and we can go through and kind of figure out what it is to sort of, make that work. At this level, it's always a square footage game. We're always really trying to look at how can we minimize square foot, maximize opportunity, flexibility, all of those kinds of things. You know, it could easily be a $20 or $25 million project when you think about all of the soft costs, hard construction costs, you know, the site pieces. I know you have utilities and some of the other things there already. So we look at the potential of, you know, could things be phased? You know, we know your core classrooms, your administration, multi-purpose, those sorts of things. We start to look at some of the other things. Can we look at, you know, construction that will leave out? Because again, we have opportunities for funding that hopefully. And there may be strategies to sort of try to make sense of that. Could there be temporary housing of some kind, even, or those other things that then, you know, eventually trade in the permanent space as time goes on? Because we understand kind of the limitations right now about the funds you have available, sort of where we'll talk about that in a moment, where the funds might be going. So from a fee approach standpoint, traditionally, let's say nine times out of 10, architects charge based on what we call a percentage of construction cost. And typically when we work with our school clients, that means we're utilizing OPSC or the Office of Public School Construction sliding scales, either for modernization or new construction. Modernization starting at 12% sliding down as the project gets bigger, 9% for new construction and sliding down. And then modular is typically around 4%. We're not necessarily designing the buildings, we're taking responsibility for some of those pre-manufactured pieces, bringing those out on site, plus the site work at 12% sliding. My recommendation when we talked earlier with your facilities committee is we have no idea kind of what we're looking at, right? We kind of have to get into the process. We have to figure out, you know, what are the delivery methods, you know, what's the relationship ultimately going to look like with Chico Unified in terms of some of those things, like I mentioned, the city's requirements, DSA, prevailing wage or not, contractor procurement, et cetera. Is to really start with a schematic design, kind of limit the contract to that piece, which is typically around 10%. The overall cost. We can try to estimate what we think the cost might be, or really probably just set it up on a time and materials basis, where we're looking at our billing rates over time to work through that. What we want to do there is define really three things. We want to define the scope. What are we looking at programmatically and design-wise? What does that look like? How does it feel? That would be, you know, drawings, renderings, all of those things. The program that we would develop in terms of the amount of space, obviously. The schedule, what does that look like in terms of how we would schedule that out and build that out, and then certainly the budget. So we'd probably be working with a professional cost estimator to figure out what's the cost and other pieces that could be phased or other kinds of things. So we know the parameters. Because if you ask us to put a fee together today on the whole thing, we're probably going to be wrong. And we're going to be wrong in favor of you, or we're going to be wrong in favor of us. So we really want to define those parameters first. Like I said, we can do a T&M. And then go through once we know that, and then define the rest of the project.
For a professional cost estimator,
Yes.
is that something that is included like in that 10% of, or is that like an additional thing that we?
Yeah, it's well, if we set it up as a T&M, the way we would do it is we would procure a price from them and then just carry over that price in addition to our staff time.
Okay.
If it's part of a percentage of construction costs, it's part of that base fee. Our base fee would include obviously architectural, structural, and civil ones, professional cost estimating. We might not include necessarily what we consider specialty. It's not like you're putting a pool in, so we're not going to have an aquatic designer. You may have a kitchen consultant because you're probably going to have a food service component there, and so there'll be a small fee associated with that might go above and beyond. Because really, when these scales were developed by the PSC many years ago, it was for standard stuff. Yeah. It wasn't for some of the specialized things that sort of came out of that. I don't know if I can Yeah, thank you. So you asked about funding opportunities. I think what I understood is you've got a little bit of maybe dollars from the original bond from Chico. There's a little bit of dollars guaranteed, I think, from the new bond coming up. And there's an application process that you can go through for the new bond. Maybe some limitations on how much they're willing to dole out, or spread amongst other charters in the district, that sort of thing. So that's limited. It's probably not enough to cover everything, entire vision, and that's okay. What we want to do is kind of work with you and kind of look at where are the opportunities that might exist. We have some really great relationships. I often say, it's not so much what we know, it's who we know, and so we want to bring in some other folks that can help you in this process. Greg Eisen of Eisen Advisors has really been our big bond consultant throughout the state. I don't think they work for Chico, but they work with just about every other district. Paradise, Durham, from Alito, others here locally. I think you have the opportunity, we have to explore this a little bit more, even as a public charter school, you could potentially float your own bond. It's risky, there's some challenges in doing that, of course. Right now is a really good time to pass a bond with presidential election in 2 years, it may not be. So there's things like that. But I think it's something to consider, and I think it's a conversation we want to have along with ourselves and bring guys early on. The state bond, Proposition 2, if you voted already, hopefully you checked yes on that box. If that passes, undeniably there will be charter school funds in that. Natomas Charter School is a great example of the grant that they received from Proposition 51, which was the last bond. I think they received 17 million or something like that. Definitely there's some opportunity there. It's a long time out. I'm not going to kid you, it's probably 3, 4, 5, 6 years even to garner those funds. But again, if you go through that application process, you know that those funds are available. We can figure out what we can design at the next stage for the purposes of when those funds are available. We work with a group. There's many throughout the state, but Hancock, Park, and DeLong, Jessica Love is the one that's representing the Natomas Charter right now. I think it would be a great conversation to have. What does that look like? We don't know exactly unless the bond passes, the state bond, and that moves forward. I think we'll be better define what the application process looks like, but I think you want to try to get it very quickly. This one's a stretch, but local developer funds. As Ty mentioned, we have a relationship with Gonzalez Development. More than likely, they have development fees that they're paying to Chico Unified as a result of some of the work that they're doing already. There may have been some in lieu about property that Chico owns that said, hey, if we give you this property, we don't have to pay developer fees. I don't know. What I do know is that there's obviously a really wonderful opportunity for them having a school in that neighborhood because it helps with the home values and helps with home sales. I think we want to make that argument. Ty has a good relationship with John Cornish, and I think we want to start that conversation as well. And then obviously financing opportunities. I don't know who you do banking with. If you do, we have a great relationship with Tri-Counties, which is of course here in Chico, because that's who our corporate bank is. But there are opportunities that we can look at. Financing nowadays, even with higher interest rates, are sometimes better than we're seeing in construction cost escalation. So it may make sense to see what you might be able to finance in order to offset some of those construction obligations. So those are some of the things that we just very quickly in the last couple of days when you asked us kind of think about. Again, we're happy to turn many rocks and go through many opportunities that we potentially see. Obviously, the big one being that relationship we have with the district and trying to garner as much funds from that as possible. And then trying to align that with what do you have, what does that look like in terms of design? Get started right away, what can you start to move forward with?
That Hancock Park and DeLong one, do they use other things outside of state funds?
They do all
So,
sorts
like,
of different
if
grants.
the forest has a grant, Forest Service has a
Exactly.
grant for landscaping and there's a grant for the
Lakeland School.
they kind of cover.
I will say, a lot of those grants are small.
Yeah.
$100,000 a year kind of thing. What we're looking for is if Prop 2 passes, then, there's $10 billion now of state funds for public schools, including charters, and you can garner 15 million of that, right? That's a game changer. So I think that's probably the big one.
And so, and you may not know this, but if, let's say, that passes and we get $15 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could you finance a project and pay it off with that, or do you have to build it with that?
No, essentially it's for the purposes of construction, but if you were to finance and pay yourself back, it's the same thing. In fact, oftentimes the way it works with Natomas Charter is they actually allocate design funds up front. So it's covering some of the design costs and agency approval costs. And then they know exactly when the funding's going to kind of go through the state allocation board. So they know, okay, here's when we can start construction because we know we're going to have those
And it
funds.
kind of phases in, right? It's not, you don't get it all at once,
Yes, I think there are two state allocation board settings, correct. Same thing potentially with Chico. Chico's not going to sell it in one shot. They're going to sell it probably over 4 sales or something like that, 2 years apart. It'll be interesting to see, are they going to take a big chunk of their first sale and then doll it out to charter schools, or are they going to say, no, we want it, 2 years and then 2 years and 2 years?
Yeah.
I don't know. But what we see, and there's a couple of things. 2020, 2021, we were seeing construction cost escalation, 12 and 13% per year. It was crazy. That's normalized, and when I say normalized, it's not negative, it's not come down to zero, it's like 5 or 6% per year, maybe 4% per year. We're probably gonna see that start to creep up again. Why? Because we've got a record number of funds across the state for public schools. Hopefully, a lot of those will pass. The Prop 2 passes, that's a lot of funds starting to go back into the system. Ultimately, these contractors are going to start to get busier again. And that's why I kind of urge all of our clients, kind of get out ahead of that. Try to maneuver and figure out what you can. You've got some funds now, to develop designs and go through and get agency approvals and some of those things so that it's shovel ready. I think it's optimum. And then at that point, as some of the big funds start to come through, either through Chico's bond or through state bonds or other funds, then you can start to say, okay, now we know what we're going to do in construction. Yeah. And then last slide, real quick, just sort of differentiators. Obviously, we've got some great firms that you're talking to. They all certainly, I think, design at a very high level. The fact that we're local, Ty being here, I think probably less than 5 minutes down the street from
Just behind
North Star's office is there as well.
Yep.
Is really important. We oftentimes, because we do, again, a lot of work around the state, it's always wonderful. We have an office there in that location, boots on the ground, get people to be there on the site during construction. That regional experience with Marion Park offers, kind of understanding the nuances there, I think is very important. And then that charter school expertise part of it. And, we didn't have Melissa at the last meeting that we had, because as we were talking in the office and thinking about getting involved, and then she goes, well, my children have been 10 years old.
They didn't understand it.
She was very nice.
You don't.
I said, you want, I said, I'll tell you what, now you're part of the team, let's go.
Let's go.
So, happy to answer any questions.
Okay.
That was a lot of information.
I know.
It was presented well. Thank you.
Would your firm provide plumber and fire suppression electricians, or would you recommend certain ones to us to give recommendations on that, or would that be?
Well, it'd be part of our services, so we would design, obviously, electrical, plumbing, mechanical. If there is fire suppression necessary, it's just a question of how big the spaces are, like a multi-purpose space may require fire suppression. That would be part of our normal services, right, part of the fees. Ultimately, again, if this project gets bid out, then there would be a subcontractor involved at that level that then would install that and be responsible for warranty and all the things that come.
And the likely players that you would have providing those services, you have knowledge about just working in the community.
So if we're saying, let's say funding's not an issue, let's just live in that pretend world for a moment. From a timeline perspective, what is, from let's start that first initial conceptual design.
Yeah.
Maybe we're ready to move in. What do you think is a realistic time?
Some of that, like I said, is determined on, do we have to go through the city for planning entitlements? Because that piece can be 6 months, by itself, right? Let's say we start on that process. So the next 6 months, let's say, so from now until, March of next year or something like that, or next year, we're probably doing schematic design and then the planning entitlements at the same time. And then really at that point, we sort of say, okay, we've defined what it is we want to do, how much we think it's going to cost, with the schedule moving forward. Sometimes we can parallel track that. If you're really aggressive, we could say, yes, let's start to do working drawings at the same time. So when planning entitlements are done, we're right in with building department review. I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge to do that only because, like I say, you probably don't know exactly how much funds you're working with until we know the bonds pass. We know what Chico Unified's process is for funding. We know what Prop 2 does in the application process, that kind of thing. So I would recommend at that point, then you go through more of a design process of probably, again, an initial phase. What can you afford to begin to put out there? Because really, what I don't want you to do is abandon that vision, abandon that sort of money is no object sort of vision. Because again, a lot of our clients really look at it from the standpoint of saying, we know we can't afford that vision day one in its entirety, But over time, we can get there. And what's most important, how do we prioritize projects on that site that enable us to get moving? You have a certain enrollment now. You're probably thinking about potential growth and maximizing the opportunity on that site. But you might not need all of that space day one. Are there ways to be able to start to do that? So if that starts, I would say there's probably another 6 months of design and then several months of agency approval. So you're probably looking at, again, maybe March, April of the following year. So that's what, 26. Construction begins, depending on, again, how long you're talking about. You're probably, say summer, fall of 27 type of scenario, right? But that's probably a pretty realistic way. It's not too aggressive and at the same time, not too conservative on the timeline. I know you're talking about, do you stay here? Do you look at other opportunities? Certainly we can try and help you with that if there's spaces you're looking at and you test fit, design, that kind of thing. We could certainly look at that as an opportunity for short-term assessment if you feel like this is too big of a burden. But I think just to kind of keep that in mind, probably summer, fall, completion, 27, whatever that, it's the whole thing, great, but I'd like to. Now, is that probably going to take some level of financing and bridging the gap between all the funds that are available? Because in theory, you have to have for construction say, spring of 26.
Yeah.
So unless Chico's ready to just say, here you go, first bond sale, boom. I don't know. Yeah, and that's the stuff we kind of have to work. But I think what's critical is get that schematic design done, and if you have to go through planning entitlements, get those planning entitlements done, because that really cements the whole concept and the vision long term. And then you can sort of take it in bites.
Then they're doing modular, because that presents a different timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something in schematic design that we're gonna.
Exactly.
And it's always important to not short circuit schematic design. I mean, there's such a wonderful part of that process of discovery, working with you, make sure that it's the right facility for the long run. There's ways for us to accelerate the schedule later in design, obviously, but that first one, we should be patient.
It also allows for community involvement.
So, which is important.
And it's the foundation of everything, right? That all the decisions that you make moving forward, you've got a really good, strong, say, site master plan, schematic design. Okay, so, decisions like that.
How do we find out if we have to do the community?
I think it's a conversation with Julie at the district. She had alluded, I talked to her, like I think I mentioned the other day, as we were preparing. And she had said, there's a possibility, because public schools don't have to go through planning entitlements. They exempt themselves from that process. And so there may be a possibility that you could do that. But really, you have to go through the schematic design anyway. It's really more of the cost of the planning entitlements, in the public hearings or planning commission, city council, that kind of thing. That adds some cost there that you can probably certainly.
And on the heels of those conversations, Julie, work directly with the development company. We don't have to talk with them about the TND, the code overlay for Marion Park and where it does and doesn't apply. And then calling in our partners with the city, work with on many projects.
So, in working, you guys work with the district, right? So we're having this other conversation of do we have a owner's representative or a project manager, or does Chico Unified kind of fill that role, because really they're the ones that are making calls at the end of the day, right?
Sure.
So with you guys working with the district, what would you say is the best? Do you think that they can fill that role for us?
I think we can fill that role for you, quite frankly.
Okay.
We get that question a lot. Do we have another arm, say project management, construction management? And even districts that we work with swear by that. Oh my gosh, we have to have, because they don't want to get their hands dirty with some of the specifics of the project. Chico Unified actually is one that doesn't outsource for. They do all their project management in house, right? So John or somebody else is doing it for them. I think that's enough. One of the things I hope resonates with our presentation is because we do so much public and charter school work across the state. This is really in our wheelhouse. This is what we do. In fact, one of the taglines that we have for a company is well beyond design, because it's not just design, it's doing all of those things to help you navigate that whole process to get to that level. You can hire somebody certainly as your own independent construction manager. You might spend, 3, 4, 5% of the construction cost to do that. And frankly, that's just money you're not going to put into construction. It's just gonna come right out, but you can build.
I'm the quiet one again, but.
Yeah.
I was a general contractor person. So when I say that I'm a senior of construction path, understanding how technical things to
Yeah.
So I have a skill set.
That's what made me so excited to join City of W. It's kind of the Goldilocks of being able to provide for communities at this scale. You know, I've cultivated my entire professional career here in Chico. I want to continue to do work here at Chico with my neighbors and community members. And to have a level of expertise and passion across the board, it provides the resources of a larger firm, but the intimate connection of a smaller firm. Like, there's no team A, B, and C. It's all team A. We're bringing all of our resources to the project.
If we don't know, we can ask someone with
We
And
can
also
find.
touching on Brian's statement on, we can help you if you do plan on leasing another building or area. I mean, we can help with that, because sometimes when you work with real estate agents, all they know is that there's a vacancy here, you can use this as a school. It's not as simple, it's not as simple as that. So what we do, and we've done this for a bunch of charter schools already, is allow them to rehouse in an existing building, but we have to cover the groundwork of zoning as an allowed school. What kind of,
Conditional use
yeah,
permit.
is it just a quick, certificate of occupancy and you're done? Or is it just, here's the keys, you're ready to go? Sometimes it's not as simple as that, and then before you know it, like, well, wait a minute, you see the planner walking around or buildings, why is there traffic? Why are there so many cars here? And then we get shut down, so you wanna avoid that. So if you're partnering with a real estate agent, we can look at the documentation, we can do that. Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
so
Yeah,
much.
much appreciated. So we look forward to your decision.
Yeah, I'll have efficiencies tomorrow, I don't know if we're gonna do this.
Sure, I get it, I understand.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but we really appreciate you guys making the guys for this that you did.
Yeah, of course.
I get to
Please.
short
I know.
Have a good evening.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, Charles, did you card pull at least?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have good conversations, oh, it's gonna be dark.
All right, see you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Great job.
Thank you, it was nice to meet you. Yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Have a good night. Okay. All right, Stacy, ready to go, right?
Bathroom break,
Bathroom break.
anyone?
Are you sufficiently blown away with now you have to make a decision between multiple top choices?
Yes, I am, actually.
Yes.
I do feel that.
It's overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah. You guys want to come over here now?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I'll speak for you.
Sorry.
Tricia, do you want to stop sharing?
Oh, I can.
Are we still on Zoom?
Yes, we are.
How long do we still have?
We have a couple things we need to talk
That's right,
about.
okay.
So,
We should
Well, we need, yeah, let's
Sure,
have some
first-
discussion about what do you want, mostly since I'm here, so.
Right.
Yeah, we're on a break.
so much you put.
oh. Yes.
So,
Back to you.
Oh.
Back to you. Oh, it's
I will reach out to Julie about the planning and entitlement. For every question I feel like I ask, I have it all, I always throw something else at me where I'm like, didn't ask that.
I don't understand what the entitlement is.
I don't know what that specifically means, but it's mainly like, do we need to do like a traffic study? Do we need to do like
It's
those,
late.
those types of things to
Earthquake.
make sure there's not something else we, like this.
Starts
We're
moving.
gonna hope that.
Buck and I were laughing.
I don't know.
Right,
Yeah, I don't know.
Studio W
More
looks
reports
just like
that
Adrian in 40 years.
to take.
So I was
He does. He's so
heartwarmed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
Absolutely.
yes.
Yes, but it was in 2005 was the last environment study. Mirroring furnace. Yeah, so I don't think that we're gonna have to do that more, right, because nothing's happened there since then, but. So. Do we need to wait for Susan, or can we?
Yep.
Yeah,
Not
we need to hear
presenting
about
this.
the field trips and her opinion of the.
I have a detail to add. I noticed in the agenda that my field trip says 800, but that does not include our food.
That's just the cost of the field trip.
That's just the cost of the trip, but we still have supplies.
Says estimated.
Yeah, okay, just
Yeah,
wanted
she
to
was
add
just
that detail
clarifying,
in.
yeah.
But we have sufficient funds in our,
In your classroom.
we're looking
Good.
better than my savings account right now.
That is good.
Well, and the reason we had to throw these on the agenda is Jennifer's field trip is coming up pretty quickly. And then the other field trip, we have to have them board approved before any money can be spent on any. So,
Yeah.
That's why
We always have to approve field trips.
Yes.
Yeah. They're just always on the
Overnight
consent agenda.
Uh,
There's usually
Overnight
like the
field trips.
application that's in the consent agenda that says like if they're chaperones. That's it.
Well, I had a great trip down there. Monterey, Elkhorn Slough, where the otters live, where the otters colonies are, and you kayak, tour boat. And they have a lot of whale watching boats.
Has anyone
There's so
here
many
ever
whales.
been on a trip to Monterey that wasn't?
I mean, I've been on a work trip that I did nothing
Oh,
but
well.
at the conference.
I was sufficiently blown away just last week.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of insulting. Why are you gonna send me here when I get a room for 10 hours a day?
I will say, as an additional stop on my son's field trip, they did the John Steinbeck Museum in Sweden. And then John Steinbeck's childhood home turned into a restaurant, so we stopped there for lunch afterwards. But I was blown away at the Steinbeck Museum. Like, I have not seen a single artist museum done that well since like Van Gogh in Amsterdam. Like where you just walk away with a profound appreciation. And then I loved it too as an English teacher because we only have a handful of California authors that write about California. And so it was just really, we were chatting until you got back. So.
Thank you.
All right, we are back in session.
All right.
Comments?
Yeah, what's everybody's thoughts?
How about we just gonna go around and say, I like this group best? And see if we all like the same group or,
I don't know.
I don't know that I
have
can choose one. Yeah, I'm not even going to choose.
I have thoughts on each of them.
Okay, go ahead.
Should they just like?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
What do you need?
Well, I was just gonna ask if you wanted to do the difference first.
So we didn't, it was on the consent agenda, but we don't have any forms to approve.
What?
Like there was in the consent agenda,
Nothing.
like
They
you send out the actual forms as attachments.
We usually.
We're not,
get the
yeah, I'm not
applications.
sending those out anymore. I'm sending out just the details because it has too many personal
Got it.
things on it for parents,
I had
contact
two
information.
teachers talk to me about the fact they didn't like that their potential chaperones were listed on the
Yeah.
top document.
Oh,
So we've
you know,
taken the important information, we put it here. It's,
Got
much clearer, and so there are two documents to look at. And they were sent out.
Yep.
So all the dots have been
This is right here.
dotted and the Ts have been crossed and this is the bottom line.
This is what
This is
you're
what
approving.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the 8th grade trip as stated to Santa Cruz.
well, we're just approving, but I don't, unless you sent a second email, Maggie, those
Oh, sorry.
things were not
Sorry.
in the email
Okay.
we got. So what's the ELOP plan as well.
You're going to see it in just a second. Do we
Okay,
want to do
perfect.
this first?
Let's not treat it as a consent agenda this time.
Okay.
Let's just, they can
Yeah.
approve
So
the,
we
each
moved the consent
individual.
agenda after governance in the beginning under modifications, so I think maybe we should continue with the architect stuff.
All right, let's
All
do
right.
the architect, sir.
You were gonna say? I really feel strongly towards Studio W, because I feel like they're a good blend of somebody local, and I think that they are the only ones that have put effort into putting some of the design to show us. And they have, so the big thing, I talked to them after our facilities meeting was the funding consultant that DLR had that they did not bring up. So I asked her to talk about that, but she did. I like RGA because I think that they will be more, they will be better on our budget, you know? I think they will cost less for us because they're local. I just don't know if they have as much expertise to guide us in the directions that maybe will make our school more what we want it to be. So those are kind of my two thoughts. I will say I talked to Julie with the district today. After our facilities committee meeting, we talked about a project manager and about funding and funding consultants and having those. And Julie's perspective is we don't need a project manager because the district is really a partner and they're going to fill that role. And she kind of said these are the things we will do to kind of put facilities at ease on that. She also said I wouldn't hire a firm just based on the fact that they have a funding consultant or a funding component, because that is something that they can also help with, or you can outsource it with something that is something you really need. So she said I would go with a firm that you feel like is going to be the best firm to design it, not based on the fact that they have that in-house. So whatever that's. Yeah. So those are my comments. And then we also have 450 on the table, so I don't forget about them because they weren't here today.
So you like Studio W, and who was the other one that you talked about?
RGA, because they're local and I think that they have done great projects. I really like that Studio W says, like, don't cheap out because you can't do it all right now, right? Don't build something that you're not going to like because you can't do it all right now, because there's ways to make sure you get that in the end. And so I guess one of the questions I would ask is, what is our goal? Is our goal to just get something right now, whatever it is, or is it get something that we can use right now, but then also have a plan to continue to build what we want to be in? So I think those are two different approaches, and maybe we need to figure out what it is that we want. I think RGA can get us what we want for a better price.
And sooner.
Well, kind of, but I think Brian brought up a good point with Studio W is, even if we can do it, they can do it in 18 months. It doesn't sound like we're gonna have the money to do it in 18 months. So then why are we gonna push something to do it in 18 months if we're not gonna be able to do it in 18 months anyways, because we're not gonna have money to pay for it? And I hadn't thought about it that way. We talked to the district about their funds, and their plan is if Measure C passes, they will go anywhere for that first bond release, but they can only sell as many bonds as the tax roll for support, right? So.
And Inspire will probably get the first of it.
And we don't know where we're going to be all in line.
Of the bond funding for charters.
Yeah.
Inspire will get the first.
Yeah, and so the chances, I think, of us getting all of those funds that we need to build a school in the next 12 months are pretty slim. So why are we gonna push to do something that we're not gonna do? Why are we gonna cheap out on the design and make it go faster? We're not gonna be able to have the money. And maybe we need to clarify more on that. But I feel like we just keep clarifying for the rest of the life. So.
There's so much to clarify.
Yeah. So those are my thoughts. Who else wants to go?
I like RGA.
Okay.
I like them, and I like Studio W. Mostly because, well, I like that Thai is so local, and I like that RGA is so local. I also have a feeling that RGA is gonna be happy for us. say that?
Okay, you can have a feeling.
Right.
Feel it, feel it.
It's here.
Yeah,
Okay,
so, that's,
That's hard hands.
yeah. That was so much information for me.
I felt good that we had some. I like RGA because I felt that they did a good job, not just showing us the beautiful, but they showed us some things that aren't necessarily our dream, but are functional. And I think anytime you're dealing with budget, knowing that the functional and what they can do with something that wasn't ideal was pretty impressive. And they're local. I also like Studio W, not until we got to kind of the end. Yeah. And that's nothing other than a feeling. But I did end up liking it, and those are of the 4 we've seen, those are probably.
Both Kevin and Ty, both, they've done a lot of work.
And in Marion Park. So both of them have done
A lot of work.
they're familiar with the soil, and the North Star is one that's done all the engineering for Marion Park.
And all the consultants.
And so they're familiar with.
And will save us money because they won't have to go. I think will save us money, because they are familiar with that, they already have a partnership with North Star, and they already know the sort of the land.
I feel ready to let 450 go because I don't have the same trust in efficiency and modernization, and I'm just at a different point in my life where I don't want to feel good when I'm talking to you. I want to trust that good work is being done when I'm not talking to you, and I don't have a substantial feeling from 450 that is as polished to just completely take on the whole project like these other firms. I didn't really like the first firm that presented tonight. That's just a personal fit for me, like misfit for me. Really tough tie between RGA and Studio W. I think RGA has a more robust portfolio and a quiet confidence. Like when they came, they didn't need to prove themselves because they are already doing so much and their work really speaks for them. I understood more tonight than I did last week that what I thought was Studio W in Miriam Park is actually RGA in Miriam Park. Like the certain facilities, even the apartments I just moved into, the attention to detail in the craftsmanship that is practical and aesthetic and just designed with purpose shows a really streamlined just expertise. At the same time though, I didn't hear from RGA any sort of conviction, inspiration, or emotional investment in our project, whereas that came through really strong with Ty. So the Studio W might not have as polished or I would say as sparkling of a portfolio, but I really feel like as a team, they're really excited about us. And so that is intriguing as well. And I think between the two of them, if only one of them was here tonight, it would be a no-brainer. But now it's difficult for me to think about picking between the two. And I feel like between those two, we will be in excellent hands. But it's just really down to which one.
I would agree with you on the LMR. Which one is the DLR?
Yeah.
I didn't have a strong tie. I would go with RGA.
Okay, good. And we're done with 450. Y'all agree with that? We don't, oh, tell us, man.
I think that even, I don't like DLR at all, but even if we did choose DLR, all of these people would build us a good school. right? I don't think any of them would put ads. So then my mind goes to, well, who is really, given they can all deliver, who's really gonna be that culture fit, who's gonna be that pedagogical fit, and who's gonna talk to us about snack time in kitchens in their report? Who really understands us? That's where I still have a little flag for them, because they really do understand what Waldorf education is. They want to talk about wall colors and line application and that kind of stuff. RGA for sure is my runner-up. It just felt like all the other firms that really actually didn't have any Waldorf experience wanted to kind of say, well, let's bring the outside inside, and inside outside. Like they kind of wanted to abstract away, like, oh, that's just good design principles. But there are some like really specific Waldorf things that was on show tonight that they didn't really understand. Now, the kitchen is the most important part of the education. But again, given they can all make good schools, 450 really understood the assignment, I think. So I don't, they're at the top of my list. RGA is at the second only because of their turnaround time, but I can't figure out whether that shows quiet confidence or they really miss some nuance. Yeah. It's one of those two. Why do they think they can deliver it that fast? And then, oh no, what don't they understand, or what do they really understand?
Yeah, and it maybe they don't understand the font and the delays and that, but they,
They have another school they're building right now that they have that time period. So, but it's not a cheap.
And maybe that school has the cash.
It's very, who knows.
But maybe what they don't understand is to not say a timeline like that. Yeah.
The others are going.
They are.
I'm not gonna promise my best, I'm gonna promise.
Exactly.
I'm gonna
So I
give
just
you
can't quite figure out why they would come and say that. And maybe they do something really special. Nobody knows.
Well, and I think he pointed out they are more efficient because they're local and they're all working together. That was
Yeah.
one of his things that
Right.
he brought up.
Yeah.
I think one of the really valuable things about both RG and Studio W is they know the city.
Yeah.
That's of great value, I think. 450 doesn't, they don't know. DRL is big and sweet and all that, but they don't know the city like Kevin and Flynn.
Yeah.
And Ty.
ELR has done work for the district, so they have done some stuff, but maybe not to the extent.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that like the expertise that 450 has today can't be learned.
Yeah.
And maybe that's on us to really impress upon whoever it is that we need you to step up into our world.
Do we have an updated timeline on 450's approval with the district?
Yes, there is no real approval process. That is, the update is, it's not really updated.
We can choose our.
We can kind of choose the rest of them. Okay, so, yeah. Buck, what are your thoughts?
450, they want 39 million initial estimate. That's way over the year. They're going to come down 20 million, come down much. I think these great ideas is definitely very well. Right now, those all that good stuff, but I don't think they'll. As far as the timeline is concerned, our needs, I don't think you can fit that. Just in comparison to the three firms. They have capability. Which is, I at first was impressed that that's something we need, but I talked to Greenberg said about
Yeah, the district.
Unified being more of a park management. I don't feel our was they presented a lot of options for billing, but they're a little stiff compared to Steve Dillon. I like Steve Dillon's kind of loosey-goosey a little bit. They're a little more, they seem more calm and relaxed. Not that DLR wasn't good, but I think No, it's good. I don't know, I feel ours off on this. It'd be down at RGA and Stevie. RGA, would Dan Gonzalez be pissed off at us if we can choose them? Because there's-
No, Dan Gonzalez likes Studio W and our.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, he works with both of them. Dan Gonzalez, thought that Studio W really would be a good fit, and he also likes RGA, so that's what he's working at.
Does RGA have the resources like Studio Buildings? I don't feel like.
Like in
They have
their firm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they do pretty big projects.
18 people.
18 people. That's all the various engineers, architects, designers, et cetera. Sounds like a lot to me, but I
There's
have
probably
no
not
idea.
any support staff.
RJ kind of did have a bit of an odd pitch about like, and you could go hire these other roles. It was more like,
Yeah.
oh, come on.
I think the district is going to be involved in doing that regardless.
Yeah,
So I just think maybe they brought it up.
as like a, hey, did you should have.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah.
What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
well, I think RGA in that point was educating.
Yeah.
So I saw a company that wanted to make sure that we knew what the options were, rather than just say, you know, you need to go with us. There's just different things you can do. So I felt good about that. I felt like they were trying, knowing that we're a bunch of, newbies to this whole process, to be able to say, so, and some of it I know what Red Hook or whatever it is from some stuff I've heard before, so it matches my knowledge. But I felt good about that. They're like gonna make sure we understand the decisions we're making. And so that felt really good. I like them the best. I wish for 50 I liked better, because they do have that background and knowledge. But I felt like when they were talking, they were city boys.
Mm.
And sorry, I do have my rural roots. Yeah, I am a rural person, rural California. I've never lived anywhere else. So I felt like they were kind of doing the fancy pitch to me a little bit, and so also with the first one tonight, it was the fancy pitch. And so I felt like either last two, I like the fact that that DLR or that RGA talked about that they could help us find a funding person too, because I know that Chico Unified can help with this, but it's not ever going to be their priority. And so they'll help us with some of the stuff, but with the new bond that's coming up from the state, and I mean, it's like potentially we could get this whole thing paid for without having any bill left.
Yeah.
And I want us to make sure we do the right things with that. And
Yeah.
so that, and,
So that consulting is important.
yeah, it felt to me, and then the DLR consultant didn't know charter rules. So she's like saying, well, you'll have to go through DSA, we've heard from 3 other firms that we will. So it's like, okay, you're,
With 450.
yeah, with,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, 450.
yeah,
They go
so,
through DSA.
yeah, so this is,
Yes.
yeah, I was not, yeah, so I felt like I could go with either RGA or Studio W. I felt like Studio W, the principal presented too much and didn't give enough to the rest of his team. So he has somebody who's an architect with construction background as a head of construction, and she was introduced as the Waldorf expert.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
That's the person who should be doing the talking.
I took that she was shy and didn't want to present.
Yeah,
Yes,
but,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this situation, you push
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. I think that's why they brought her.
yeah, and that was my sense, is like, oh, here's the Waldorf
Yeah.
parent.
Yeah.
You said it was all, you're on board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't plan to have her.
Yeah, we didn't have it, we didn't have it
It's
until,
all good.
so it felt false to me,
Yeah.
so it's, and all those things could be totally wrong,
Yeah.
could be wrong impressions, but it was this first impression.
RGA did
Yes,
This is true.
RGA,
and likes the same music.
Yeah.
Okay.
is RGA, is my understanding, they would require us to find out plumbing, electrical, fire suppression,
I think the district has to,
they can help us.
they have to contract with them directly. They can't, I think I think that they will help guide us.
Yeah.
I don't get the impression that they're not gonna help us
Sorry,
with that
Mary.
process.
Well, CDW was saying that it was, they'll drop plans up to that. RGA will do that, I assume also.
Yes,
Yeah,
they'll do the
like I
plans,
said,
but
like
they don't hire the plumber.
They won't.
That'd be
Yeah.
more of a contract with GC than he would do.
Yeah, the one thing that RGA did not talk about as much as the other, and I don't know if it's because they're not as familiar with it or they just didn't. And it's also a limited amount of time, right? So if you can choose what you're.
Right.
So is, like Studio W and DLR talked a lot about being very aware that the district owns the land and the district is involved. RGA did not bring that up.
Yeah, they work
At
well.
all.
I think CDW will well.
Yeah. I think Studio W has more experience working with the district. RGA, I mean, they're doing, they've done, stuff with the charter schools, but whether or not those charter schools had their own funds, so it didn't have to go through the district. It wasn't the same situation, I don't know.
Our situation is unusual in that we have bond funds from the district. Most charters that are built are totally on their own, doing their own.
Yeah, they're doing their own bond.
Yeah, so we're odd.
Yeah, I like Studio W, he's the only one that's asking about the prevailing wage at the very beginning. I could go to the district. I have Julian's speed up. So, and I liked his approach of, well, we could do this part that we're paying with those funds, with prevailing wage, and we could do this part maybe because we're not getting those bond funds at not prevailing wage, if we are able to carve it out. I liked that strategic thinking,
Flexibility,
That's 50% of the budget is labor, so the prevailing wage is big.
And so, yeah. So, whether or not that's doable or not, I don't know, but I like that he was strategically trying to think of it, and I like their approach of, we know you're on a budget, and we want to make that work.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think of whatever the other one.
HRC
was like,
later.
nope.
Goes to you on the day.
Yeah. So I guess, do we want to make a decision tonight, or do we feel like we need more information to make a decision? Does Cheryl have anything she wants to add? Miss Cheryl, do you have anything or comments?
Cheryl.
No, she's at mute.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I was just sending Maggie a message that I'm turning into a pumpkin now.
Okay. Do you have any thoughts?
I don't really. It was so hard to hear. I don't have much experience with this, and so I thought they all sounded great. And I was just surprised that they would talk about the that's part of their offer, is talking about the financial aspect of things. So I just have to defer to you all. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night, pumpkin.
Thank you. What did you say?
Good night,
pumpkin.
Good night, Cinderella.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
I wonder if Julie would have any input as.
She will not. I asked her to
Can
come
you-
tonight, and she said, I'm not coming tonight because I do not want to sway you guys one way or another. I want you to pick the best fit for you.
So does it say if even she had some idea who completed projects on time?
She, I will say, in the very beginning, she said, I think the W will be a good fit for you.
Okay.
And then she also said, I think you should talk to RGA because I think that they will be the cheapest option. So
So she did give you some.
those are.
But that's some skills that I don't want to answer.
After I tell you, I'm not gonna give it.
Whatever you want.
Here you go.
I think if one person likes it, they can be fit.
I guess, so my question is, if we're not gonna make a decision tonight, what information do we need to make a decision?
I think it is, so I would
Because-
go with you, I think we can make a decision. And I think for continue to ask for more
No,
information.
I'm not part of this team.
Maggie, what do you think? You're a community member and a
Oh my
body person.
gosh.
You've heard it all. And you're good at reading people. And if there's just any observations.
I kind of feel like I'm vibing with the rest of you. I'm a little heartbroken over 450 because it was the first presentation I heard. And so they were initially like, very excited. But tonight, I think the one thing I liked, because I'm sort of a linear thinker, is the way that DLR laid out the presentation. It was more educational, like Susan said, and I appreciated that because
DLR or RGA?
No, DLR.
You like DLR?
I'm just saying, I liked the way they laid out their presentation because it was educational and I need that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not familiar with this process. Moving on though, and hearing RGA and hearing Studio W, I'm leaning definitely towards either one of them. And
We're all like,
because I didn't feel like DLR had any kind of idea what we're about. And I love the fact that these two other companies are local. I liked that RGA had so much in Marion Park. All of those designs were really beautiful. And but again, I'm not sure that their timeline seemed crazy to me. And I was thinking the same thing Ryan was thinking. How did they know something we don't know? It just seemed off because everybody else we've heard has said 2027. So I don't know. I guess if I had to pick tonight, it would be Studio W. It really would be. That would be my bottom line. Because I think that they're going to give us what we need, and I think that anything as far as design, Waldorf design, and things that we need, I think they're excited to learn and do something different. I think they have an excitement, a desire to learn about us and what we want, and I love that. They said that we should. What was that? That guy said something about we shouldn't. We should. Yeah, we shouldn't. Don't lose our dream. We should keep that dream and
Find a way to achieve it.
Find a way to achieve it. It doesn't have to be all at once. Just,
I like that too.
I like that a lot, and I thought, that seems right.
Well, and I guess another thing to think about is, right, when we decide who we're going with, we are going with them for the initial schematic design, right?
Yeah.
Not going with them for the long haul, not to say that that's not our goal, like if we're choosing somebody, our goal is to go with them for the long haul, but they're doing that initial schematic design, budget, how can we make this work as like contract A phase one, and then from there, then we take that and say, okay, now how do we make this work?
So what I'm hearing is that if we want to design for what we want, it's probably W. If we want to be concerned about funding, because one of the things W said that is like, well, we'll take, this is the standard, what we charge. We're gonna charge what the state says we can charge. So that's when she says, RG is gonna save you money. They didn't give me at all the impression that they were going to take the maximum amount that they were able to take by the state. And W, whatever they are.
Yeah.
They
put up
basically
the scale.
said that, and here's your scale, and this is what we'll charge
Which is the
you.
same that DLR shows.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
and whereas RGA did not.
Yeah.
But just, and this is feeding a little bit about your,
Yeah.
secondhand, what Julie said to you, is that they were talking more about the 3%. They're going to save us money because because they're in Chico and our cost of living is less and so on.
Yeah.
So they're talking about their costs, whereas W is talking about what is the standard for the industry is, what's allowed. So that's, on the other hand, so it's like, are we going with, we're gonna pay the base rate because we're gonna feel better about the design?
Yeah.
Or are we concerned about money?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
basically
No,
what it feels like.
So
You're
that
saying.
brings me to a question that I might want to ask. I'm curious if we posed the question about phased design to RGA, what that answer would be. They didn't present it to us in the same way as Studio W.
For sure, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have
For
talked
sure.
to all of them. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I think, yeah. So that makes me think that if they can do phase design as well, and they're going to save us money, and we in general feel relatively equally about companies, then I tend to lean toward RGA for being local and being 100% local, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the other firm is local.
Jennifer's.
I'm also, so when last week, I was first blown away by Studio W because I felt like it was the first time we had confident, charismatic, polished, like I can trust this person to have conversations I don't even know how to have for me, right? With people I don't even know who they are, but they're gonna be very important. And then tonight though, with RGA, I felt that with Kevin too, that so I feel like Brian is really charismatic, really confident. He's more of a traditional guy in his way of things. But Kevin may actually have more intimate greased wheels locally to just like, one is really good at presenting, this is how smooth this is gonna be, this is what we can do, and I feel really held by your confidence. And then the other one just doesn't need to boast or sway, it's just like, oh yeah, it's just already done, see, it's right here. And it's just like a different energy, and I know that's a personality difference, but with one being completely local, with hands in a lot of different really big pots, from Chico Unified to Paradise to Marion Park, and it's like a big part of Marion Park. It just like, where are our ruts in the road ahead? And because that's what I don't understand.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But right on your point there, he told us he meets every other month with these heads.
Yeah.
And then on the alternate months, he's meeting with this other. So there's the structure that's kind of allowing him to know what's going on.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
I don't have as much confidence in Kevin from RGA as I do in Brian.
Okay.
Or that's just a personality thing?
Yeah, tell me.
I just want.
Kevin, RGA, and Brian.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I didn't do it. I didn't write anybody's
Brian.
name.
So Brian, I don't know, I just feel like, once again, let me say this first. Very good at this whole thing, I said, we gotta put our personal wants and what we desire aside and think we're very good. So, I feel confident with any of these firms, that's true. So, I'm just kind of swaying one way or the other. I felt if I were to hand this whole project over, here you go, make it happen. I feel most confident to do that. I don't know if Brian was, he's just kind of soft spoken and.
Kevin
I don't know
was
if that's
soft-spoken.
Kevin, Kevin's kind of soft spoken from RGA, and I wasn't sure if I just didn't feel like he I don't know, represent us well enough, just kind of get by. Where's his team too? I like the fact that we met the whole Studio W team that we keep working with. You know, our thoughtful teams, whether that's a show of force or like show members kind of parade around, but I don't know, confidence wise.
Like they were the most local and they were the smallest team.
Studio W has everything that we kind of want. It has the guideline, that we all, I've heard you guys voice. It's local, but it has the big power of a big firm and small. That's basically left. We have the resources of a big firm, but we are small. So we're still in Northern California, Sacramento, exactly, totally local to go. These sons, that's what I feel like. I wasn't sure about Kevin.
I am super torn.
Yeah.
Like, I love the Studio W has some modules with like the wood beam ceilings, and that's an option. I feel like they have more knowledge about building schools.
Schools different.
Than
Ryan said
charter
they're just
schools
throwing out
and
all our stuff like, oh, yeah, well, outdoor and wood and
Yeah,
stuff, you know.
and like consultants to help with different avenues. I really like Kevin with RGA. I agree with you, like, I think he knows the city inside and out, and he could make them, and he could do it.
It's just quiet comments, I guess.
And my only thought.
Talks like an architect.
Yeah, my only thought is, I wonder if Studio W can design us a better laid out school of what we want, because that is their specialty.
Right.
Do, right?
If
That's
have-
what I'm
they
saying, I
have
don't
signs
know
up.
where the ruts are in the road ahead, so
City stuff.
just what's gonna really hold us up? That between the two firms, one would be better than the other.
Yeah, and I think Ty has a good relationship with the city, and he came from North Star, so I think that he's been in the industry, but I think Studio W, my personal opinion is Studio, I think it's Studio.
You guys just saying studio names? Hi, okay, got it.
Ty is the one that lives here in town.
Yeah.
And
So
so
Ty
Ty
is the one that gave us our first design.
And Ty is, he's the one most excited of that team.
Yes.
He's the one most
You can
excited
see
about
him
it.
Sitting right there on
Yeah,
that.
and he's the one that drew that for
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
because he's the one that wants it, because he wants,
He drew
because
that.
he cares about
And
you.
so I will tell you, so Vicki and I met with Dan Gonzalez last week, right? Yeah. And, so, but Dan has used RJ for a lot, and he really likes Ty. He said Studio W wants this project.
At least
He said they want this project because they want to build more in Chico, and Ty wants this project. So he thinks Ty will put his heart and his soul into this project. He said he really likes RGA, he uses more as an implementer. Dan Gonzalez is an architect engineer. He's like, I do most of the designs, this is what I want, I give it to RGA to do the plans, right? They don't do a lot of the design in that project. RGA implements the design I have, I give it to him, and he comes up with this plan. He's like, Ty is one of the only people that I have, correct me if I'm wrong,
Right.
Ty is the only people I have given a design, he has changed it, and I like this design more.
That's important information, because now those buildings that shine in Marion Park are actually Dan's.
Yes,
Yeah.
Right, that is the conversation.
That is exactly the
Okay.
conversation, and, oh gosh, I just said.
And I don't
Oh,
know
and
Dan very well
Ty-
to know what, one way or another, so I don't have any, so I have to take what he says as truth of what he's saying, but.
Yeah, Gonzalez also mentioned North Star, and Ty has it all.
Well, Ty moved
out of
works from North Star.
Yeah, so if North Star happens to be the construction company, that's an excellent.
RGA also works partners with North Star,
North
so
Star.
both of them have the connection. North Star is kind of like the only.
Both local and like respected local.
Yeah.
Organizations.
Yeah.
That's what I would read, so it's.
RGA and Studio W have both brought up the same contractors as far as, and Gonzalez has brought up the same general contractors, I would say, that they feel are the best of the best, that are going to stand by their work and do the work. So I think that tells me they partner with good people.
Kind of like we don't have to really babysit them. Yeah.
I really think either one of them are gonna do good. My gut tells me Studio W will design a school that will maybe be more Waldorf-y or more wow or more what we want in the end. I think RGA will get it
I think
done.
your comment really swayed me, because I was blown away more by looking at the breadth of RGA's portfolio. It's like, oh, I didn't realize actually you are these primo designs, but then if that's actually them tweaking Dan's designs and it's not their own.
And that's what Dan has said, right? But RGA has done like Sierra Nevada, and I mean, they're beautiful. buildings as well, I mean, so, if I had to decide
And that
tonight,
could
I
have
would
been
probably go with
Gonzalez
Studio
too,
W.
slow and
It could have been,
Slow.
yeah, Gonzalez
Right,
being
yeah.
like,
it makes a difference, you're right.
right?
The other thing to kind of keep in mind, I feel very cynical about this, but like these are all sales pitches too, right? Like they all want us to buy something, and so when a salesman tells you to, hey, dream big,
Yeah.
that just means spend more money with them and increase our monthly bill. Like,
Yeah.
budget is a real concern.
Yeah,
I'm gonna spend more dollars a month.
Yeah. Just let's pretend like
Yeah,
and
another
let's
5
do,
million,
and
that's
we'll do it
okay.
in 5 phases.
Yeah.
Because then you can pay us for 20 years straight. Like,
Yeah,
right. That's a bit of a thing.
I want to piggyback on that because in my notes here, I just realized that RGA says that they value people over profit. We like to think our employees stick around for this reason.
Yeah.
That's
They left-
Waldorf.
They left, it went from the other one that quit us, they left them because they wanted to be more that way, and that's when we interviewed the first company, whatever their others are, HMC, it was like, they were more interested in
Yeah.
telling us what they wanted things to look at. And this is a group that left them because of that, so. I don't know.
Like Ryan said, there's salesmen, there's mega pitch, I mean,
Yeah.
RGA, you know, can you do it in 18 months? Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's
They know the time's important to us, so it's, you know, you just gotta sit for all that.
So,
Okay,
my last comment is, I think we're fine.
Yeah.
The way you go.
Yeah.
I do too,
don't think
I
either one
100%
is a bad
think
choice.
we're fine either
Yeah.
way. So it sounds like RTA or Studio W.
Yeah.
We're,
Like you were talking about though, if we do family switch, is that a big logistical nightmare or is it contractual? Or we-
No, contractually, right, we would hire them, like Studio W is saying, more than likely, and what the district is saying is when they do that schematic design, it's gonna be a time. It's gonna be billable time with a cap, probably, right? We're gonna say, this is a cap, give us an amount, give us an idea, but it's gonna be more of a time, they're gonna bill us hourly. And then once they give us that, I mean, I guess you could take somebody else's design and say, now we want you to do the drawing.
Yeah, no, they don't like
I don't know
that.
if that, I don't know that would be cost effective for us,
No,
but,
people-
yeah. So,
Yeah.
Not that you want.
This feels like a marriage proposal.
It does.
it absolutely
it's
is.
Which of them we talked, and which of them?
I think it's like just sending out the announcement, we're getting married.
Is that RGA or is that,
I worked with a couple
It
of
wasn't
architects
ours.
and one of them was really invested in our project. Commercial. And it
I think-
evolved into a now your thing. Because I went with the design, and I was having her tweak my friend's design, and she's my friend. And so
think that was
I went
the
with the
first
next
one.
architect, and it was just, here's your plans, done. Sweet, that was like, it's pretty easy, like, the other one was not great, so.
Yeah, you want them to be,
This is
you want them to
fast.
buy in, but you want them to also,
Do what we say, yeah,
Get it done.
get it done, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like a mix of what we want. Yeah, like I said, it's a thing.
so we're ready to make a decision.
Oh my God.
We just have an
I mean,
initial vote,
quick
so
vote,
we're
yeah,
let's
it's
do
that's
that.
for a vote, quick vote.
It is.
Right.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be-
All right, raise your hand if you're.
I mean, I would like their opinion.
But in the end, we just forecast the
At the
budget.
end.
You're the ones with the name.
Okay.
Yes or no. We just are in the
You wanna
meeting.
walk down those halls?
Yeah.
I can vote right now, let's go. I move we vote.
I'll second it. In my big meetings at CAR, we say, we call for the vote, that means nobody's allowed to discuss anymore.
I asked Maggie to look something up. RTA is the one that talked about how they involve the community in getting their input.
I feel like they all said that.
Okay,
Yeah.
So that's something.
it's just an important piece. of
Because
work.
when Ty with Studio W was talking,
Okay.
he said,
So,
part of that 6 months, this 6 months is you don't wanna skip out on involving the community and
Right,
the
okay.
Waldorf mom, I don't remember her name.
Walter.
Melissa said,
Bring her.
It's a good Waldorf name.
said, you don't wanna miss on that component of that schematic design and really bringing in your community and designing that.
Yeah.
So I remember Studio W also saying that, DLR, I don't remember. Okay, let's just not official.
No,
Everybody,
Okay, we'll start with you.
everybody give their opinion. Don't shake your
I'll
head.
just-
You can't try in the middle.
Oh, yeah, it's always starting with
Okay.
mine. Okay, let's go.
Okay, start.
RGA.
Okay, RGA. I would probably go studio.
Oh, no, there's something for it.
Oh, my God.
Oh,
Okay, well, I want everybody's thoughts though.
Tiebreaker.
Susan, do you
I
have?
can't,
Okay.
at this point.
Vicky, what do you want to be the last one?
Oh, I know what it is now.
I already have to say it.
Choose the right one.
I'm gonna vote Studio W this time, but next time I'm voting RGA.
Good, because it's gonna be a next up. Yeah.
I like
What are you guys'
Studio
thoughts?
Studio W.
Studio W, studio club.
I think for no risk, stress-free, I would do RGA.
I'm glad we are.
They're dead, yeah.
So I will say this, I'm sorry, I keep flip-flopping, so I'm not helping you at all. But one of the things when we all said, well, Ty is the one that's really excited about that, then I went to 3 years, what if something happens to Ty? I mean, because
I
that.
don't think it happened to Kevin at the same time.
Yeah, but he's not,
We still have
he's
Melissa.
not
It's not
the, yeah.
passion play.
I don't know, I mean, Ty was like, I want this, I'm here, I gotta do this.
Doing
It was-
free spec work to get it.
Yeah, it was like, and the other guy is, well, he's here, that's what we're doing, I mean, that's the way I feel, it's like, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, because we have boots on the ground here, well, what if something happens to Ty?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a terrible, awful thing, but I've seen it happen before, when you go, okay,
Yeah.
because this one person, we're going with this company, and then something happens.
Yeah.
And then you're a mess.
Kevin he's a principal, he's one of
Wasn't
them.
that what happened at 450? Didn't that guy present and say,
Oh, his
Yeah.
partner.
his
Yeah.
partner? He started with his partner. That was part of the presentation.
But I feel like Kevin is our point, that also happened to him. Like, it's true.
Yeah.
Yes, because but I think
With
there's a
RGA.
closer tie within that firm.
Yes, to pick up.
It's a full moon.
Yeah, and they're all local.
They're all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anyway, but again,
Have fun.
So
I'm
what
not,
do we do?
I'm not making.
At the end of the day, I think at the end of the day, I just wanna save money because it all comes down to liquidity.
And they all are going to be able to do this.
Well, what do you want?
Isn't anybody?
Yep. Call to it.
Yeah.
Who are you get along with the next 3 years?
I just wanna make sure we have a good functional design.
And designs that
I think we will.
I think I feel bad about
RGA,
letting
studio.
Ty down,
are James.
but I feel like it's a poor choice not to do RGA.
Because of the cost. And we're guessing on the cost,
Say, what do we do?
because we don't know.
Okay.
We're just guessing that
We're
they're
just
gonna be
saying,
more
Julie
affordable. Well,
Oh,
and
Julie.
Julie hasn't worked with them,
Oh, I don't know.
because, so then my thought is why not?
Well, and Dan's no help.
And, I know, and so my other thought is, why isn't RGI one of theirs?
Is it no good?
Here, that looks pretty cool.
There's design flaws. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's too noisy, can't eat that.
I know, I miss
You
it.
can see it, you guys can vote?
well, we're kind
Figure
of,
out.
we're kind of split.
Do we need, who was
Well,
that
Vicky
here?
said next time through she was
Oh,
going to RGA,
oh
so
my
we
God,
voted
then
and
we
we're
have-
done.
Don't really have to like watch the recording.
Yeah, next week, and then.
Oh, maybe a couple weeks.
So, no.
So we split
We
right now?
need to
Yeah.
decide now. We put too many things off
Yeah,
until the
it's
next.
like, yeah.
I agree. We need to stop.
There's nothing that is.
So
urgent.
Buck, who do you
Nothing
want?
guys
It's
are
gonna change
feeling.
between
Oh,
now and next time.
Yeah, I
Or
agree.
so
I
we
mean,
can have a
Studio
board
W.
member or.
CUW.
I'll say with you,
And I will defer to Buck, to be honest with you. Because he's the one that has to actually work with the guys.
yeah, like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would defer to Buck.
I just feel like they have more experience.
I don't know,
Studio
it's- they're more possessed, they're more, that was a sales.
And I really like Kevin with RGA. I mean, I really do. So, Listen,
Two RGAs for
who's
sure.
gonna tell them they don't get the job?
You promised to tell them.
Oh, I did.
Yeah. Every time they walked in, he said, I will tell you.
I will let you know
Yeah.
what the next steps are.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hearing me like RGAs.
Someone else can do that for you.
So
I'll do it. I'll do it.
This is good. That's
We'll
all
all
I
do it.
Buck and I are used to that.
Can we vote
Yeah.
now?
He can say no, really.
Are you gonna go with Studio W?
I'm not changing my vote, but I would like to vote again.
But she would like you to change it.
So, first, then make a motion.
I move that we vote again.
Well, we move
No,
that we
vote for
select which firm.
I move that we vote to select a firm.
No, we.
RGA.
Okay, so I move that we vote to select RGA as the firm to.
I second it.
And it's seconded.
Who's the second?
Any more comments or questions?
That's the motion on the table.
Oh.
No,
It is a motion, it's seconded.
Oh, so vote again.
This is the vote. You start.
RGA?
Yes. I'm a nay.
What?
I'm a no.
No, not RGA. I go RGA.
Okay.
Motion passes.
There it is.
Oh my gosh.
It's so close.
Wow.
So close.
Tell them it's because they brought people.
We just needed a presidential debate tonight, that's what
Oh,
we
right,
need.
it's top of the cake.
Let's just bring them back for a bake off, you know, it's like, okay, thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good job.
All right, charge
Now we have to do
sold.
consent.
Okay.
So,
Now
if
we
you guys
have our
want,
consent.
I'll call you guys, all four of you.
We still don't know what
So,
you're
here, take care of this.
I do.
Sorry, yeah. So Ryan, it was a problem calling you.
Oh,
Say,
I know.
you know, take
Oh,
care.
because I voted for, yeah.
It's your fault.
Then I
And it's a
already-
public vote, by the way.
And I will have
We don't
to,
know.
I'll totally learn Kevin's name and then I'll call.
And then you
And
can,
I bet you we could get him to be a sponsor at our next one.
there
Oh,
you go.
yeah. We're gonna make it back.
Yeah. Now you're talking. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the facilities committee is excused if they wish to go. And the agenda is, we are back on approving the consent agenda.
Well, we're going one by one. We
We're
took
going
it off.
one by
We pulled it
one.
off.
Item 2.1. We are looking at an overnight field trip for the 8th grade to Santa Cruz for $10,000.
That's what she wants.
That's why we're fundraising for
And they
it.
have the funds
They currently, I think, have 4.
they will
So
go
they
in.
have to figure out the rest.
If they don't figure out the rest, what happens?
They either cut down what they're planning.
So it doesn't just come out of our budget.
No.
because we went-
Or they.
So we're
or
just
people
saying,
pay.
if they can pay for it, they
Right.
can go.
Okay, okay. I'm okay with that.
All right.
You didn't have to- I'll ask you later.
I make a motion to approve the 8th grade field trip.
I will second it.
Thank you. Thank you. We are looking for questions and discussion. All right, let's vote.
You're the Donna on, Trisha aye.
Vicky,
Right,
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Item 2.2.
Who seconded? Sorry. I'm getting.
I
so-
seconded.
I know
Okay,
what I
Donna.
motion.
All right, thank you.
I make a motion that we approve the 4th grade field trip to Center Fort.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Comments, questions? All done? And vote.
Donna, aye.
Trisha aye.
Vicky, aye.
Right,
And thank you, gentlemen and ladies. Item 2.3.
ELOP, you wanna put that back down?
ELOP plan.
So there was a plan that I did not realize I needed to turn in.
I'm glad we had a special meeting.
And I have completed it and told Meta to rewrite it because it's just. the
Expanded
legal
learning
requirements
opportunities
Of
for.
of what we're gonna do. So it is our ELOP plan, that's our extended day. And it covers the requirements that they have. Keep rolling down. For example, zone instructions is part of it. Nope, stop, and then get the boxes. So this is saying it's a safe environment, so I said that we have passed all our annual safety inspections, and we use trained Blue Oak staff, primarily faculty or aides, lead the programs. It's here on site. We have 7:15 to 4:15, 30 additional days, including summer camp. This is all the stuff they wanted me to say that we're doing. So those are all the things we're doing. The days are 9 hours long. Active engaged, describe the program opportunities. So this is that we have day clubs, daily clubs. We have this is the legal requirement.
Yeah.
So we did camps and homework club and just some examples of the things we're doing. Skill building, sometimes it's hard to write. So we talked about SEL, I talked about both new skills and expanding skills like woodworking and guitar. That the use of voice, the voice really is that they don't come or sign up if they don't like it. So yes, we're using youth voice, but I also talked about the advisory that we're doing. They vote with their feet, and we don't offer that again. And then healthy choice. I talked about snacks are within the guidelines. That's what they needed to hear. And our behavior practices are the 5 virtues and attended, all of that. It's just this one I'm not proud of at all. I just threw something in there. So we are using universal design for learning, and all of our special ed kids also, nobody's eliminated from it, and that was the main thing. But the diversity statement needs a lot more work, but I didn't have to, so that's what they
There's a
did.
typo right there if you want to fix it.
There's more than
Our
one.
school contains.
We're gonna, I'll go through it. We'll
Okay.
edit it.
Thank you very much. So, and all of our staff are either, certificated teachers or certificated, are trained paraprofessionals. So really occasionally we've used an office staff person, but they're also trained in what they're doing. So it's pretty much that. Mission, vision, and purpose. I pulled the vision and mission out from our charter, and then I added so the ELP is to expand the learning and caring environment for students and families. Like that. We really aren't using any collaborative partners like we should be doing this. Well, if we do that, then we have to pay extra money to
This would be
somebody
like
else
art or
instead of our own
something?
staff. Yeah, so it would be like if we had a yoga person come and do yoga, we would be doing, or if
And
we
we have to pay.
work with, but we have so many talented people within our community that we really haven't even had to think about going outside.
You did have somebody come to do robotics last year, right?
We did have a thought. I could list that. That's okay. Thank you.
It was a good
program,
Yeah.
Mhm. This is just saying that we're gonna continue to improve our program, so using the continuous improvement process of thinking about something, planning it, putting it in place, studying it. That's what it talks about, which we do, and again, the improvement comes based on how well the clubs go. And some games. Program management, it talks about we use Jackrabbit to sign software to sign people up, and then we have Kelly Sexton and we have Amanda who are running the program. So we don't have any other after-school funding, so that's really does not apply. And then to TK programs, we are staff 10 to 1. That was one of the things they required. Then they want to know what programs we're using. So I talked about the pedagogical Waldorf, which is very well supported in the lower grade stuff. And then that's a schedule right off the website. Yeah. Yep. And that's it. I'm gonna give you all the legal stuff. That's what I need.
All right, so we need approval to submit a plan.
I move that we submit the plan for your.
I'll second.
Questions, comments?
With, you can implement it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Vicky, aye.
Brian,
All right, next meeting, right? Yes,
November
next
19th.
meeting
Yeah.
is November 19th, and Tricia, thank you for calling all those wonderful architects tomorrow.
That's pretty
Thank you
amazing,
for all you've
Tricia, to organize all that.
Yeah.
You know, Tricia, we can't just send them a letter if that's what you want to do.
No, I
Send
don't
them
want
something
to,
else.
I don't want to do that.
Thank you for your presentation, but we've done with somebody else. Okay.
And
Just saying.
That makes me think of my doctoral program where they, every semester they gave us a letter that said you were at least adequate.
Did you love it? Yeah.
I'm still offended 10 years
Yeah.
later.
That's not my
Hey,
style.
yeah, that is, wow.
Charter council to approve those.
If it's overnight.
It's overnight.
Okay. It just
I'd
seems
have to
like-
go back.
Oh, we don't have to approve them buying a chair.
Oh, did you adjourn?